everybody. Digital Dev here with the rest of the HQ boys, Nick, Sean, Big Nick. And today is the premiere episode of our new series called Screen Peek, in which every month each of us will play the same game and then we'll sit down and have a conversation about it.
If you subscribe to our Twitch channel or our OnlyFans pending, OnlyFans TM pending, we don't know. We tried to sign up for OnlyFans. They said, fuck you. We're trying to figure it out. But if you subscribe to us wherever you can, you'll be given a role in our Discord where you can come, send questions, play the game with us, talk with us all month long, and then you'll get this episode early before anybody else. But
excellent deal.
Since this is the inaugural one, it kind of...
We decided the game and just kind of did it, the four of us.
Yeah, so kind of fuck you guys, but enjoy.
Yeah, so this month's game is the highly regarded, highly controversial The Last of Us Part 2 for the PlayStation 4 video game console.
Well... dude, Fitz won't stop sending questions.
No, he's got to stop because I need a chance to
stop.
talk.
Fitz missed the deadline, by the way.
That's okay. I mean, so why don't we get started? Everybody tell me what your general opinion of the game was, but everyone do it at once so no one can hear it.
Like elevator pitch, scream like, ah!
No, Nick, you start.
My general take on the game.
Yeah,
just like
30,000 foot view.
Okay. I thought it was an excellent game. And especially having been away from it for a little bit and not being met with some of my frustrations during my playthrough, which I think is going to come with like any game. I really do think this was like a tremendous game and something that will obviously be remembered and regarded, like Dev said, for a long time. Like I think about how The Last of Us 1 is critically acclaimed and like will go down as like one of the best games of all time for like this kind of thing. And I think it's totally possible that in the same amount of time that it's been since Last of Us 1 came out, that Last of Us 2 will like probably be held in the same regard. I had like I will say that like this game was not what I was expecting in terms of like horror stuff, which we'll get into. And because of that, it was definitely a different game for me personally, because I don't play horror games or like have an interest in playing horror games either, because I just like they're not for me. But this game is just like so thoughtful in terms of like the story, and they took such good care, in my opinion, of like bringing that world to life and making me invested in so many parts of the world that it is an exception in like my not wanting to play horror games, because it just is such a worthwhile experience.
I said 30,000 foot view, man.
Is that
you give me the dissertation? No, it's fine.
What? You want me to just say it's good? I thought it was good.
I'm gonna be honest, Nick. That was very well said.
Okay.
And
is that too? Well, listen, we've never done it before.
Right.
I don't want to be like, man, game fucking ruled. The fucking zombies were gross,
No.
and let's get into it.
No, that was good.
Those are my thoughts.
I think
on
that
it.
was good.
Overall, I thought the game was amazing. Like, I have thought about the game literally every single day since I played it. I've like consumed every piece of media, like interviews with Neil Druckmann and Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson. Like, I am fully bought in on the game and obsessed with it in a way that I wasn't as obsessed with The Last of Us Part 1. Like, I think that a lot of the controversy surrounding it is really dumb. I think it was like an incredible game.
I had like mixed feelings about the game when I completed the game, but I think it was due to the pace at which I completed the game. Right. I like crushed it in like 4 hefty sittings. And when I finished the game is exhausting to play. And so by the time I finished it, I was like kind of happy this is over. But then after I had like a week to sit with it and like look back on it, I think that the game is phenomenal. I'm not sure if I like, because the big thing was like, is it better than the first one? I don't know. I'm not sure if it is. But I do think that the game is phenomenal. It does things beyond exceptionally well. The storytelling, the acting, the visuals, like there are things in this game that are far and above the best that video games have ever done. And I think that that's not arguable. Like, I don't think you can like argue that the story that they're telling is amazing. Like, It is. It's like that is like Oscar film winning stuff. The visuals are like jarringly good. Like when you are in the woods and the lighting with the particles and the way everything like looks and reflects off the character models and like everything looks amazing. So like the game I think is phenomenal. I think that there are things about it that are it's weird. It's one of those things where I look at it and I'm like, this game is so fucking good, but then I look back and I'm like, did I like it? I don't know. Like I think as a game it's great. Did I enjoy my experience? I'm still unsure. Like I don't know if I did or not. But I think that is kind of why the series is so good, is because the games are like undeniably great, but was the experience good because like the games are so great, or because, you know, it's tough to play. Like the whole time it is like draining to play. So I don't know.
What about you, Dev?
So I think it's a great game and definitely a technical marvel, especially if we're talking about running it on the PS4 platform. When I think about my time with it, I blazed through it just like Big Nick. I think I beat it it took me about 3 or 4 days to beat it, but I just completely housed it because as someone who enjoys, probably my favorite genre of movie is suspense and thrillers, things that keep you on the edge of your seat. I like needed more and more and more, so I needed it. Never tired me out to get on to the next thing. Like that adrenaline rush is what I needed to keep pushing. Like is what pushed me through to play till 3-4 in the morning, and that's definitely a testament to how I felt about the story and the world building around it. Technically, obviously, everything's great about it. Just from the character models to, you know, the world itself and how everything interacts it's really beautiful. And what Naughty Dog has done with the technology is it's honestly really, that's their bread and butter. Really, is what they'll do is at the beginning of a console generation, they'll throw something out and it'll be a good game, like not a bad game. But then what they'll do at the tail end of a console generation is then they'll take what they've learned from that and what everyone else has learned from the console generation and kick that up, which they did with the previous Last of Us. That was at the end of the PS3's cycle, and now this is a very good swan song for the PS4 and to kind of take us into the next generation.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that you beat it so fast. I know all three of you beat it way faster than me, but there were just parts of that game that I just like did not want to play after. Like so much of it is just so dramatic, right? Like even like in the first fucking hour. Also, maybe this is like dumb, but spoiler alert. Like if you got this far and you didn't know, we're gonna spoil the shit out of the game. So,
The word like in depth.
We're gonna get granular.
Yes,
So
we're talking
this-
in depth about.
so if somehow
Go
you made
play
it this
the game.
far, yeah, do
So you're
not-
like,
Stop. This is your warning.
this right here that we're making should not be how you experience this game.
But in the fucking first hour, you watch Joel get his head beaten in with a club, and like, I mean, first you watch him get his fucking leg shot off and then beaten him with a club, and like that happened, and I wanted to play more, but right away I was like, holy shit, man! Like there were times where I was playing the game, and it like the stress of the game put me to sleep because I was like, I can't. It's like physically exhausting to do it.
It is an absolutely taxing game. It's funny that it put you to sleep. I would have to go and do like eye bleach stuff. Like I would get to a part that was like too scary and be like, I know that I can't handle whatever I'm about to deal with, and then I'd go watch like a nice anime or something, because the game really is like stressful, emotional, like extremely dramatic, and I could only take so much of that at a time.
I think like you just touched on beginning of the game, Joel dies, right? Big controversy with the game.
I
Right.
think that anyone that didn't see that coming was like, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
I don't know if I necessarily saw it coming. I just thought like he would have survived somehow.
Sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm with Dev. Like I didn't see it coming in the first hour of the game.
No.
Like
Yeah, that's
like
it,
I mean
that's
I
it.
knew it was gonna happen. I figured it was gonna happen eventually.
Yeah. I don't think
because
you get through that game. I don't think a version of that game exists that Joel doesn't die.
And I will say that a big point of controversy in the game is obviously that he dies immediately, and people are like arguing like, how can you expect me to care about this game anymore? Because because Joel, you would just play as Joel the entire Last of Us. You learn to love him. You watch him fall in love with Ellie and treat her. And then when the game takes that away from you right away, I understand the argument of like, you love this character so much and now he's gone and it happened immediately at the beginning of the game. But for me personally, it's like, no, I want to kill her now. Like I am bought into the story of like, how could you do this to me, the video game?
Yeah.
So when that happened, what I did is I stopped and I thought about, right?
Yeah.
The Last of Us 1,
Yep.
right? And the journey that I went on with The Last of Us 1 and really thought about the game and about how, like, yes, it is about Joel, but the franchise is about Ellie, right? The franchise is really about Ellie.
Yeah.
And Ellie's, how she has grown up in this world, right? And obviously it is also about, they're both the main characters of the first game. But by the time you get to the end of The Last of Us 1, Joel is questionable.
Yeah.
You're starting to realize that the world is not black and white, right?
Yeah.
The world is not like there are good people and there are bad people. Like there are people and the world is not the same.
Yeah.
Like the world that they exist in is not this like there are these good people that are fighting for what. No, everyone is just trying to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
And how are we going to make it to the next day?
Yeah.
And so we get to the end of The Last of Us. If you didn't play The Last of Us, I don't know. Spoilers for The Last of Us 1. Like, the end. Joel kills fucking everybody. He's the Terminator.
Yeah.
At the end of The Last of Us 1, Joel is the Terminator. So I understand why people were put off by him dying so easily. But I think what was amazing about how easily he was taken away is that is the world they live in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing is permanent. These people are not special.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and I think that the other argument is that Joel, people, it's tough because you play The Last of Us and it's the first one and it's so emotional and you get so bought into it that you think you know the character better than anyone else because you play as the guy who does all this shit because he kind of feels like an extension of you and you watch him in these previous scenes and what he would have done in XYZ. So the big argument comes out in that Joel would never have trusted Abby and her gang of people. And very early on, you actually read a note in the game that says that it says something like, the boys in Jackson are different. They're not like how they used to be. We help people. We bring people in. We educate them, whatever. Like, this dude has a house now.
Right.
Like, he has a girl that
it's 4 years later.
Yeah.
It is literal 4 years later. He's been living in a safe community
He's
with
soft
people
now.
that take care of each other.
Yeah.
He's getting older. Ellie is not a child anymore. She's an adult who can handle herself. Like, he doesn't have to be this tough, hardened guy who's by himself in this crazy world. He has this small community. Of course, he's with his brother. They find someone who's being chased by a million zombies or whatever they're called in the fucking game. Infected, right? They're like a ton. Like, that's what they do. They help the people around Jackson. They try and save. So, like, when people are like, he would never. Yes, he would.
Right.
Like, now he would.
Now he would, because that's just 4 years ago is like a lifetime.
Right.
Like,
In that world.
especially that.
Especially in that world. Like,
Yeah.
I think people will look back. I think maybe like a lot of like the haters will look back and realize that this was just like, it was just a good idea. It's just like,
I
they didn't
don't
want it to
think they
happen,
will.
but they didn't like want it to happen, but like it needed to happen. And I can think of another game where the character didn't die off, but you were expecting to play as a character for the game,
I was
and
going
they
to
switched
ask
it
you
up.
about this.
And that is Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah.
You
We
played
don't
it-
have to
yeah.
do spoilers on that. This game is
Yeah.
like 25 years old.
Yeah, you play. So just real
Nick's
quick.
panicking.
So yeah, so like real
Like,
quick. Yeah.
I am.
You're never gonna play it, Nick. Don't worry. So like, just like a real quick overview, like throughout the franchise's history, Metal Gear 2, Metal Gear Solid, you play as Solid Snake and you go through his whole story and everything like that. And then the first 3 hours of Metal Gear Solid 2, you play as Solid Snake. And then when the chapter ends, Solid Snake is pretty much drowned in the ocean, and the next chapter starts, and you play as a completely different character, who had no sort of back history with the series before.
Yeah.
And honestly, and the game is phenomenal. Like, and the storytelling's still excellent. So.
That's something that we kind of briefly mentioned a minute ago, is people that turned the game off when Joel died and said, well, I'm not doing this.
No.
I feel like there's an argument. I'm not going to tell people how to feel, but I feel like there's an argument that if you really gave a fuck about Joel the way that you say you do, you would want to get to the bottom of why that happened, and you would want to experience it and understand it, because the game is like, kind of like what you were saying, it's about the world that they live in and like how these people have to get by.
Yeah.
And for someone to just, maybe Joel was their favorite video game character ever, which sure, like he can be, but just to see him die and say, well, fuck this, I'm not even going to finish the game, I'm just going to look up how it ends, which guess what? The story is not about how it ends. These games are not about the ending. It's about the journey. And in the first game, it is literally a journey.
Yep.
Like, hello, that's what the game is about.
Yeah.
So to see that happen, when it happens, of course I'm emotional during it and I'm stressed out and I'm like, holy fuck.
Like, yeah, of course.
You just turned the world upside down right now in front of me, because that's how it feels. But I need to know why. I need to get through like everything. And maybe you should just know that you're going to get all of those answers, and like you, like later in the game, you play as Joel, like you're with Joel. It's not like Joel disappears in that.
I was going to say, by shutting the game off, you are doing yourself such a disservice to the character that you claim you love, because you are missing out on so much amazing storytelling from that character later in the game.
That maybe feels like it means so much more, because you're like, whenever those flashbacks with Joel happen, I was like, I gotta really care about this and take my time with this right now, because he's gone.
Dude, that was my exact feeling.
When I leave this flashback, I don't get to be with Joel again.
Correct.
Like, I'm gonna do everything that I can within this flashback with him to experience everything that I miss about him.
So that is something like masterful that Naughty Dog does, right? Because think about it as if you're Ellie, thinking about your times with Joel and cherishing those memories. That is what you are doing.
Yes.
You're playing those things and you are cherishing every second with Joel because you know he is gone.
Yeah.
That's how good they are at what they do.
I wasn't playing the game to get to the end of the game to be like, okay, that's the conclusion. Or like, I wasn't playing the game being like, maybe someone went and got Joel and like stitched him up and like made him better. Like, obviously that's not what was going to happen, but like, I don't know, maybe some disillusioned person is like, that this is a miracle is going to happen. But it's like, I know I'm going to get to experience these flashbacks throughout the game a little bit here and there. And that is what is like massively important to me and my relationship with Joel.
Yeah. I mean, I think that by shutting the game off purely based on a decision to kill a character, you've done yourself a disservice, because there's incredible storytelling involving that character later in the game that is some of the best between both games and the Left Behind DLC.
Yeah.
Like, those flashback memories are wonderful in really fleshing out how complex Ellie and Joel's relationship is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And how hard it is for Joel to not treat her like his daughter, but while still trying to take care of her, but not be too imposing, but not, well, it's like this crazy, and you can feel it in everything he does and says to her. It's so, the performance is so crazy good that, like, I could not imagine in that moment being like, done, shutting it off. Like what?
Even if your like first instinct was like, yo, I need to fucking kill this woman. Like, even if it was like purely on revenge, like,
that's fine.
Playing the game, just keep playing the game. Like,
I mean, I to an extent, I understand. Naughty Dog spent this entire game, from the marketing up until the ending of the game, pulling a lot of bait and switches, and I understand people being frustrated with things like that, like in a trailer where it looks like Joel saves you and says, I couldn't let you do this alone, but you find out that's Jesse, actually. That was never Joel. And like, if your primary motivation is killing Abby, and then you skip to the end of the game and you don't kill Abby, like, I understand being frustrated and I understand not getting what you want out of it, but I don't understand not just like enjoying the story for what it is, not what you wanted it to be.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
This is like the Star Wars fan conundrum of
And I'll tell you
like-
what, the game's about a lot of things, and it's kind of about people not getting their way and things not being easy.
Yeah.
So like you as like, and I think that brings the player in even more. Like
There's
that's
a
another
lot
fold.
of things in this game that
Yeah.
that bring the player in, and something we haven't touched on, which is like a lot of the new characters.
Yeah.
And one of them, Dina, who I think is an awesome character. And really until like after talking with some people about the game afterward, really realizing that like Dina is the player. Because if you think about it, the beginning of the game, right? Ellie's like, she's furious, spiraling. I have to go. I have to find these people. I have to kill them. And Dina is like, yeah, let's go. No questions asked. Let's go. Because you at that point as the player are like, yes, we have to kill who killed Joel. We have to find them and kill them. And then as the game goes and things are starting to spiral and you're seeing Ellie spiraling and you're like, I don't think we need to be here anymore. This is not worth it. And then Dina starts, I don't think we should be here. I think we need to go. And then later in the game when Ellie's still suffering with it and wants to go back and find, and Dina's like, don't go. And you as the player is like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't go.
Yeah.
Like, it was like crazy, that realization that like they did it again. Naughty Dog did it again, where they put you in the game through a character and they were able to pace the game and know how you would be feeling at that point in the game, and then having a character vocalize that in the game. Like,
It's crazy.
I
hadn't thought about that.
It's so
that's
unbelievably
new to me.
good.
Yeah.
It's so crazy how good it is.
No,
And
you're
I
right.
like, and then when I saw people being like, Dina sucks, she's a bad character, I was like,
Is everyone missing the point here?
she's a great character.
People think she's a bad character?
I saw people being mad, but I think
People
this could
are
be
gonna
the
be
same
mad at
people that are
anything.
mad that
It's probably
I
like
can't-
vague anti-Semitism, honestly.
I
Of course.
can't dwell on
It's honestly
people
it's
being upset.
the Venn diagram is a circle.
I mean, I did, through listening to it, Neil Druckmann's interviews, found out that, so, and this is what a lot of people say, it's like, you know, fucking SJW, the video game, because there's a bulky woman and a Jewish girl and a trans guy. And there actually is a department at Naughty Dog that focuses on diversity and inclusion. And like, Lev was originally not transgender, but they needed, there was a whole different reason you went to the Scar Island. And then through going through the story, they were like, well, what if we find a way to work this in? Like it makes sense. It's a religious cult. Transgender people get to have representation in the game, and like that's not a bad thing.
It's also
It's
like,
not.
here's the thing. Here's the thing about like diversity and inclusion. Like, those people exist in real life.
Right.
Those people exist in the video game.
Yeah.
And the game is not about those things.
right,
Yeah.
Right.
They're just in
They're
it.
they're
They just
there
exist.
because they exist.
Yeah.
Just like they exist in real life.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be
Um,
like sitting here and being like, Devin is of a diversity. You know what I mean? Like, we put him in the game. No,
Yeah.
Devin is here because he's a real person.
No,
like,
Dev's on the show because
on
we
the
need
show.
a minority.
because we need,
we need
like,
the black vote.
you know what I mean? Like, Dev has been our friend for years because he's a real person
Yeah.
that we like,
He's like,
and he's
exists
here.
in real life,
Like,
Yeah. So one thing that I had written down, holy shit, can't do English now. One thing I had written down was that the opening of the game also is kind of prepping you to know that not only is some bad shit gonna happen, but that Joel deserves it. Like, it opens up with Joel having this conversation with Tommy, being like, "This is what I did."
Yeah.
And like, you can't tell anybody.
Mhm.
Nobody else knows, but I did it. And as soon as that conversation happens, I think your gears start to turn of like, why is he admitting this, right? Like, what's the point of him admitting this? Does he just need to get off it off his shoulder to his brother or whatever? And I think that they're kind of prepping you to be like, think a little bit about what he did. Like, he doomed humanity forever, seemingly.
Yeah.
right.
Like,
Well, he took away another possibility to restore the world back to where it was.
he took away the only possibility
That they have.
That
They
Yeah.
are even remotely aware of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, I don't think anybody made it through the end of The Last of Us 1 and was like, Joel's a good guy.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure some people did, but like,
That's
You know,
crazy.
so,
because
like-
that scene ends where Joel and Ellie are talking to each other at the end of The Last of Us 1, and she is looking at him like he's a monster.
Yeah.
And is like, what happened? And he's like, bullshits her.
Yeah.
And she gives him the most like half-hearted, I don't believe you, but I have to trust you because you're the only person I have, and gives him this like, okay. And then the game cuts.
Yeah.
And when that conversation is happening, I remember looking at the screen just being like, Joel's the bad guy. I was the bad guy the whole time.
Yeah.
So when
Like-
the scene when Joel's going into the hospital and shoots the doctor,
That you play 15 times.
15. It's so crazy
I will
how
say-
much they drill that.
Yeah, I will
Yeah.
say that was like a little much. It's like we get it.
so when I was
get it, guys.
when I was playing that, when I played The Last of Us 1, when I got to that point, I was like in the room and I'm like waiting for a second. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna shoot the doctor, right? And I remember sitting there, like so vividly. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'll just go stand closer to him and see if it like triggers the cutscene that's bound
like an
to happen.
alternate ending or
There
something
must
like that.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna shoot the doctor, right? And that was when the split happened for me, where I was like, oh, sorry everyone, that just got I just punched you in your ear. That was the split for me where I was like, I'm just a passenger in this story ride.
Mhm.
And that was something that Fitz was like talking to me about too, like about this, like you were experiencing
Yes.
a story, like and when I got to that point, I remember I was like, can I
Do
please
this?
not like have to do this? And then I remember the when you leave and the elevator thing and he's standing, and I'm like, I was just like in this crazy like tunnel vision, like I just have to get through to see what's gonna happen, because this is not something I want to be involved in now. Like this isn't how I would have chosen the path to be.
It's funny that was the first time you felt out of control, because the game did such a good job of convincing you that everything else was the right thing to do.
Do you want to know what's crazy? Is
Once
my
again, punching.
experience with the ending of that game was not that. It gives me the option to kill the doctor, and I was so bought into Joel and Ellie
Yeah, same.
that I was like, "Yep, fuck this guy,
Yeah.
bang!" Like,
really?
Yeah, I was like, "Get us out of here!
Wow.
They
okay.
are gonna kill her. We got to get out."
I remember just being like, there's like, because what I was hoping was that there was some cutscene that like it worked, like something worked, and like we all were alive, and everything was like we're gonna figure it out. Like, don't shoot the doctor.
No,
kinda deal.
I
Like,
was
there
I
must-
was
there
so
must be a
bought in,
way.
so bought into the Joel and Ellie. We like protect her at
Yeah.
all costs.
Yeah.
And then that's how good the writing and the performance of that last cutscene is that in that conversation my mind changed, where I was like, holy shit, that was
like, snapped out of
yeah,
it. Yeah.
that was wrong. Like that was not, and he is the bad guy.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it wasn't me. I was watching Joel. Like it was crazy.
And going into this game, I think that like they kind of painted on the wall for you with Joel admitting it like right off the bat, but you gotta think that there's gonna be repercussions.
Of course.
Like going into the game.
Yeah.
Like there wouldn't be a second game if we weren't gonna deal with the repercussions of him taking away the one chance to save humanity.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that the game does really well is, you know, it's like how you would deal with a real person, you know, right? Like if Nick's my best friend, and if someone's like, "Oh, Nick did this shitty thing to me," I'd be like, "Really?" Because like he's my best friend. Like I don't think he would do
Yeah,
that.
I don't see him doing that.
And it's like, "Oh, well, you know, Nick did this," and it's like, "Oh, but like this morning he made me breakfast. Like how could you do that?" Right? Because in this game, you know, you hear murmurs of the previous night, Ellie and Dina kiss on the floor, and then Joel like fucking tweaks on this dude. And it's like, yes, like
well, to be fair,
like-
he was an asshole and deserved it.
right.
Once
But
you got to that part.
but you're sitting there and you're like, wait, no, Joel is the good guy. He's like he's standing up for Ellie.
He's standing up for Ellie. He loves her. He's protecting her.
Right.
Like,
But then you hear Ellie be like, I really wish he didn't do that. Like it's fucking embarrassing. And you're like, well, which is it? Because I'm personally like, yeah, fuck that dude. Like I'm so glad that Joel like
decked
stepped
him.
in. Right.
Yeah.
But I think the game does an amazing job of just like you just don't know how to feel. It's like you
you are
see,
uneasy constantly.
and they are constantly challenging you the entire game on everybody that you interact with. Like you think that Ellie is the best person in the game, but then you play as Abby and Ellie is systematically killing off people that you love, that you've spent your life with, and you're like, oops, like Ellie's the bad guy now.
So I will say the one I actually loved that you flipped the script and you played from the other side because it really enforced this, like, the world is gray.
Yeah.
Like, no one is the good guy here. But what it did do for me is it did take me out of the having Naughty Dog like pull the wool over my eyes type thing, because as soon as I started playing with Abby and it said day one, I was like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, same.
I've been down this road and I know what you're doing. You're trying to make me sympathize and empathize with Abby and realize
her
that
people,
Yeah.
not
She
every
also has a story
yes,
and a journey.
right. And
Now, okay, well, go
yeah,
ahead.
well, and that was like the one thing that I didn't like about it was just that, like, I saw what they were trying to do, but I still was like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it was a lot of people were like, "Oh, I just didn't want to like play through the game again," and it's like it was completely different. It was like the same like settings, but it was completely different gameplay, like completely different story. And I think having them interwoven, like day one, instead of doing day 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that would have been way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, I hated when I switched to Abby and had to play as her for a while. And it was because of a similar thing that you experienced when you go and shoot the doctor, where you're like, I'm with Ellie, I'm protecting you, like, I gotta get out of here. I am about to get the answer that I have waited however long I played
at
this
that
game
point,
for.
like 14
And
hours or
it's like,
something.
it flips,
The meeting.
and I'm gone, and now I'm playing as someone that I have fucking been hunting, and I can't. I have to play. Like, I was so frustrated with that part because I was like, I fucking hate this girl. I want to fucking pin her down with the gun and ask her the questions that I want to ask, and I want to kill her, and I want the game to be over. That's what I need right now, and it wasn't what I got.
No.
And because of that, and this was foolish of me, I can admit that, I was fully not invested in the first few hours of playing as Abby. Like, I was just reading through my notes that I haven't read since I like made them as I was going through the game, and I wrote that I felt, and I maybe still agree with this, I wrote that I felt that the Abby shit was tedious, like right off the bat, because I'm like, I'm fucking going through the wolf camp right now, and we're gonna leave.
I thought that was awesome.
I thought it was sick too.
thought it was
It reminded me of Fallout a lot.
Yes.
Like, just to see this like haven of civilization
Yeah.
in the midst of
it gave a lot of context for why they behave the way they behave and how it operates from the inside.
I absolutely see how important it is. Looking back now, hindsight's 2020. It is just integral to the game, to the story. Of course, by the like few hours into the Abby thing, I came around on it and invested myself and was like, okay, I'm gonna like go deep here and care about this the same way, like at the same level. I'm not gonna necessarily side with her, but I am going to like invest
least-
myself the same way and experience
See
what
what's going on.
Naughty Dog wants me to experience.
So you kept a wall up still, like saying
In terms of,
saying
like,
like
caring
I'm
about her?
yeah saying I'm not necessarily going to side with her.
I'm not.
So he
Well,
wants
I
to know the
just
story.
I wasn't siding with like anyone at that point. I didn't flip all the way to Abby. I was leaning away from Ellie just to let myself like be immersed in Abby's story, especially because of how cool I thought it was that we got to see more shit that I had been wondering about. Like, because with Ellie, you don't like really do much with like Scar stuff, but you
Yeah,
go
right,
way
right.
more in depth on the Scar stuff.
But I disagree. You don't go in depth enough with the Scar stuff.
But you do it more than with Ellie, which was
definitely.
what something I was looking for.
Yeah,
So I
you're
was
like,
finally
okay, I'm
getting.
looking
It was
for
like,
that.
oh, I get to go to the island. Like,
See that shit annoyed me though. Like, because the Scars I think are the actual most interesting part of the game. Because the wolves are just the fireflies. We know Jackson, but the Scars are so fucking cool, shrouded in mystery. You go to the island and nothing happens involving the Scars really. Like
there's definitely
don't get to
backstory
know anything.
and lore that we don't have. Like you were telling me the other day, like we don't ever really learn extreme details about the leader that died. Like,
You don't know anything about her.
Yeah.
You don't know how she rallied
Which-
these people who
Yeah.
like
Which, like, if I were to try to, like, I think explain why maybe they chose to do it that way, it's because like that woman has been dead for a bit, and like maybe this community is a little bit removed from her teachings and stuff, so maybe the information isn't really there for us to know.
Which
like,
they kind of touched on that. They were like, hey, like they've kind of, if you're like, Lev was kind of being like, oh, like this wasn't how she wanted
Right.
this to go.
Yeah.
So you kind of get that idea.
So
of it.
the way that I interpreted that as the player was like, I only know what is like available to a person in this instance to know. Like, I think they could have explained it if I found like papers or something.
Yeah.
But then would it have been like spoon fed? I don't know.
But Abby talks about a lot of stuff like, oh, she was batshit crazy. She did this. Like, there's clearly information that is known
So
in
the
the
way-
game.
that could just be what the wolves know about
that
the
was
scars.
how I
That could be.
interpreted it.
But my other point is that for a game that, frankly, kind of overstays its welcome in the long run, it's like a really long game, to have the scars be like such a centerpiece of what you deal with as the wolves, and Abby deals with or Ellie deals with them, and you go to the island, to get as little lore out of that as they do, but spend so long in the game, felt like, guys, this is like the coolest shit ever in the game.
I personally, I'm with Nick. I think we got the information that the character would have had themselves.
But
like,
you're running around with 2 scars for like hours.
young scars.
Young ones.
But they know.
that left.
Yeah,
I mean,
but are they gonna? But they also you just met them, right? Like they're just like building this rapport. Obviously, like they got better and better as the game progressed. But like they're not gonna sit down with you for like 3 hours and like
No,
put
but you're
more
running
exposition.
around. Abby asks questions. Like,
And
I mean,
and they were answered.
but I'm saying like okay, we don't know why they like cut their faces. We don't know. We know the woman's name is Sarah.
Yeah.
We don't know how she was a martyr, what happened, why there's like, I'm saying there is, I don't believe, and by the way, like there was a whole truce between them. Like I think it's established that people know a lot more than ever gets talked about.
Yeah.
And it is a massive like blind spot.
The thing you have to think about is like, all right, say we existed in this world, we would not talk about things that we all know exist, like
Also just,
known
like-
facts. We don't sit around here and talk about like known history things that have.
I also-
you
I
know what
kinda-
I mean? Like,
I just wonder where they would even
But okay,
put it
okay.
in as well.
Okay, but so
'Cause the game is long.
let me get this straight though. You guys are totally fine not knowing any of that stuff then.
I'd like to know.
I
but
mean,
I
it
think
would have been
it's-
like it would have been nice, but I think like the pieces that I was fed, I was like, okay, like I can kind of like, and also just there is something to be said of like leaving things open ended or making your own assumptions, and
Yeah.
also just adding on to the length of the game.
The scars thing specifically reminded me of Inglourious Bastards. Like Brad Pitt has a noose scar around his neck. You can see it.
yeah.
It never gets brought up. It never gets talked about. No one's ever like, what's with that thing? He's never like, oh, one time I was
Well, yeah.
hung. It's literally just, you're looking at it the whole movie and you're like, what? Like something happened to this
So
dude. And so
that-
like that
yeah.
was just kind
But
of
this is a 30-hour game.
Sure, but,
like
like-
they go
I
so
think-
granular
I think
on
it's
so
the-
many different things.
I just think it's the idea that like you don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's like there's so much in the world that you don't know. That
I mean, yeah, here's the
just
thing.
a-
They could have put that in the game, and now we're talking about adding even more to a game that, like, frankly, I think is too long.
Yeah.
And then also, what does it add to the story that they're trying to tell about Ellie and Abby? Like,
I guess
not
that,
really
I guess
anything.
I guess that's true, but think about all the environmental storytelling that you read in Seattle, right? Like they tell you a lot of micro stories about people you never meet that don't matter. I would have liked some of that invested into
Sure.
the people that
I
are
don't-
in the fucking
yeah,
game.
I don't think that you're in the wrong for wanting that. Like I don't want it to make it seem like that. I'm just also like I feel like I could see why they didn't have like such.
From what I can tell, a lot of that stuff was actually stripped out of the game.
yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm saying. I bet it was planned.
They have. I bet you they have like. There's probably like a Scars Bible.
Yeah,
that
of
the
course.
writers have, and then they just have to figure out
what needs to
what's
be in
gonna
the
be
game to
done.
tell the story they want to tell.
I just think for me personally, that was actually the potential for the most interesting thing that you could do in the game, because the wolves are like, it's just the Fireflies. It's rebranded Fireflies. We know what the Fireflies are, and when you go, I think it was legitimately stripped out of the game because of how quickly the island goes to shit. Like,
Yeah, and-
but I think that so a lot of the game is focused around the scars. There's 2 scars in the game. You go to the island. There's the fucking truck that you run into. Everybody's writing the notes. You have these conversations, and I think that was legitimately kind of done a disservice, given that I don't want to play a game for 30 hours. My ultimate save file was like 31 hours, and come out like not knowing anything about that faction really.
Yeah, I guess I like after I was done with the game, I didn't think too.
Yeah.
I didn't think 2 seconds about the scars.
Yeah.
I was
The
like,
whole time I was just trying to find, like, because they talk about it. They say Sarah. They make a spectacle of it,
Yeah,
right?
they
Like
have,
you're
like, all
always
kinds of
zooming in. They've
paintings
got the carvings, and that to me, I was like, I want to know more if we're gonna talk about her so much.
It's weird. I didn't leave the game feeling like I didn't get enough information about them. You know, like now that you're talking about it, like yeah, things weren't answered, but I never felt like slighted or shorted by the game.
And if you just focus on the character stories that are presented, like Lev is fleshed out, right? Like it's talked about how Lev was transgender and he was gonna have to marry an elder, and the thing like that gets explained. You know, Abby's story gets explained, Ellie's story gets explained, but the faction as a whole is kind of left untouched.
I think I kind of like that, but that's like me coming from like Star Wars, like old Star Wars before they started spoon feeding everything, which was like when I was younger, nothing was explained in Star Wars. The world just existed, and we were seeing a story about this specific thing, and everything just like was there. No one drew attention to it. It just existed, and that was the shit I loved as a kid because it sparked my imagination to like what is going on.
I guess my bigger complaint is that, like Nick said, like when you play as Abby, you get to deal with the scars more, but you don't get anything more of substance than you got with Ellie. Like you do spend a lot more time with them, but with Ellie, you already see the paintings, you see the sayings, you hear the conversations, and then you play as Abby, and it's just that again. It is not deeper.
Now, what if we think about something I'm thinking about right now? When you are Ellie, you're kind of learning about the wolves and the wolf people, and you go and you hunt the wolf people and you kill them. And then you switch and you play as Abby, who is a wolf, wolves are at war essentially with the scars. Ellie, in the first part of the game, and Ellie as a character is separated from both of those things. When you play as a wolf, you then unlock more, like you're kind of learning a little more about the scars, but you learn a lot more about the wolves. Like you see their camp, you experience their day-to-day life,
because you're like
make
in
relationships
circle
with the wolves. But when you're Ellie, you don't get those relationships with the wolves.
But you do
so
get,
what if
you get a lot of documentation about the wolves. Like, you know, like when you first get to Seattle, you're opening drawers and reading papers and talking about how the wolves took over from Fedra and all that shit. There's like none, like they vaguely talk about the truce, but nothing is really discussed.
What if they're, and I'm not trying to like rewrite the game or anything, but I wonder if you would have needed to actually play as a Scar for a segment to learn and understand about the scars. Because we right now see it through the lens of a wolf who is scared of and hates scars. So you just see what she sees and experiences and feels about them, which is maybe just like, oh, there was this, all I know, like as Abby, I know there was this crazy woman.
Because you got to remember, Abby has not been a wolf forever. Abby was
a firefly.
Firefly, which was not attached
maybe the
to
answers
this.
would be uncovered by playing as a Scar, but I do feel similarly to you about the Rattlers.
The Rattlers is another thing.
Because
that,
to me, the Rattlers were really interesting. Like, they were obviously way less touched upon, and you kind of rush through it, which I'll talk about a little more in depth in a second. But I was like, whoa, this is like a whole nother dynamic.
I'm going to be honest about the Rattlers. I think they are the only bad guys in the game.
Yeah. They seem fucked up, like totally fucked.
They are the only bad guys
fucked.
in the game. They are a faction of human slavers.
Yes.
They are bad guys.
Yes.
the one last thing I want to say in the Scars before we move on from them is that, to your point about you play as Abby and you learn more about the Scars, I think you, as the wolves, you play as Abby and empathize with the wolves. You don't really learn a lot more about them, short of seeing their
inner sanctum,
their base.
because
but before I ever got to the wolves, I knew the story of that part of Seattle. I knew the takeover from Fedra. I knew what Fedra was doing to prevent that, and none of that gets touched on from the wolves to the Scars. And that's kind of my point is they go an inch wide and a mile deep on the wolves, and they go a mile wide and an inch deep on the Scars.
And maybe that's because you play as a wolf, and they wanted you to be invested in Abby as a whole,
even before,
as opposed
they
to
put
like
you
you're
in
not
her
playing.
shoes.
Although there's a Scar with you, you're not
Yes.
playing as a Scar's right hand man or the headscar's right-hand man.
That's fair. All I'm saying is that it would not have hurt to have the same level of detail that they gave to the wolves to the scars. And I think, honestly, it would have made it a lot better, because then you start to think, like, because right now there's just so many questions that you just can't answer. Like, what would compel somebody to become a scar? You don't know. You don't know what the doctrine is. You don't know, like, short of being born into it. But there's so many people that are scars.
Yeah.
And, like, but you know that the reason someone would become a wolf is because the wolf was promising, you know, safe
Safety
haven for
from
Vedra, from
Vedra.
food, education, things like that. That's all I'm saying. We can move on, but I legitimately think the scar stuff needed to be more fleshed out, at least a quarter of how fleshed out the wolves were.
I do, like I was saying, feel similarly about not knowing much about the Rattlers, and when I got to the end, I like definitely felt like that part was like rushed, and like maybe it's because I was like, holy fuck, can I please just get to the end of the game now? Like, I've already had what feels like a couple of endings. Like, can I please get there? So maybe it was the way that I played it. But I really, it kind of clicked for me then. I was like, holy shit, there's like communities of people that might be doing who the fuck knows what. Like,
I think that is
any
the
crazy shit could be
implication
happening.
to the
and
end of the
that
game.
that is how I justify it being not as detailed, because it is like the Star Wars thing where it's like, my imagination is just running wild. Why do these people slave humans? How the fuck did they think to fucking chain up the infected and use that? What are they using them for? Like, there's so many questions, but it feels like, you know, that could just be like, you don't know what's out in this world. Like, you, like Naughty Dog telling me, like, you have no idea how people are coping with the world ending and they're being infected around. These people are just doing it like super fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like that part was like, I don't want to say it was tacked on.
It felt tacked on.
It felt like it, and like
It felt tacked on, but then when there's
the
one
end
thing
of
about
it
so
is what's important.
is
So
what's
they,
important.
it's clearly like they needed to use that to get to that.
Right.
So like I get it. But when
So-
I was playing through it, I was like, should I be exploring? I don't want to.
It is weird to introduce a new faction in the last 2 hours of the game.
Yeah.
Because it's just like,
Yeah.
So the I think they were having a hard time closing this thing out.
Yeah. Feels like it.
In some ways, right? So, but in other ways about the end, I feel like it is like the most deliberate, perfect thing. So, like, the end of the game, Ellie has decided she is like has to go finish this.
Yeah.
Despite everyone around her being like,
Except for Tommy.
well, Tommy, we can talk about in a little bit. Tommy is fucked.
Yeah.
But like Ellie's life is it's like as perfect as a life could be in the world they live in, right? She has this home away from trouble with someone that loves her, that she loves. They have a kid. They have this, you know, they're self-sustaining. There's no problems.
And she's immune.
And she's immune. Like, and you know, and like the road to get there was brutal.
Yep.
But now we have reached our like personal paradise, right? But of course, it is not enough because the cycle of violence has to be completed, because that is the theme of the entire game: is the cycle of violence and ending the cycle.
Yeah.
And so she has to go finish it, and we get to Santa Barbara, which I thought was cool because it was like a whole new environment. That part I liked because I was like,
because we live in California.
right. And it was like, oh, this is like neat. It's different, right? It's different than anything we've seen in The Last of Us. And then they get to basically the Rattlers, and the Rattlers are just bad.
Yeah.
They're like, there is nothing good about them. They're like in any interaction prior to you even getting to their camp, there's never even a like some sort of like glint of hope that these are at all people that can be reasoned with.
You read, there's a note that you read of a guy being like, I'm gonna go talk to the Rattlers. Like, it's our only option. We have no food. We're gonna die. Like, Mom, I'll be back. I know you don't want me to go, but I'm gonna go try to talk to them. And it really felt like this dude was gonna like try and join the local bad gang. Like,
yeah, just to put food on the table.
right. And it's like,
And he probably ended up in a cage.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so you get there and they are clearly just slavers.
yeah.
Doing fucked up shit to people, and you go through and you set free the people that are being held, whatever. And I think this is important because what now Ellie is seeing is she is seeing true
Yeah.
evil,
Yeah.
not people trying to survive and get by and protect theirs. She's seeing evil. And then you go down to the beach.
Yep.
And it is haunting.
Yeah.
Because what they have on the beach are these pillars of people that they've strung up to torture and leave to die.
It's like baking in the sun.
Baking in the sun, and it is like truly horrific.
And then you find out that like it was actually like not like it was like months.
Yes.
It wasn't like when I like realized that it had been like 5 months, I was like, holy shit. And then you see Abby and she's like
Emaciated.
she's not fucking
What?
jacked.
It
Which
was 5 months from when Abby got caught
Yeah.
to when Ellie showed up.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's months, and this character who like the whole game you saw this fucking tank beef fucking
The Terminator.
the Terminator.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I loved that. I loved that they made her this like ass kicking machine.
She was built to survive.
She was built to survive.
Well,
survive.
but if you look at if you pay attention to the flashbacks, she wasn't like she wasn't built stocky. She trained every fucking day for 5 years
to get her revenge.
Right. Like and I think that not only shows like how dedicated she was, but like she wouldn't skip it for anything. She wouldn't skip it to have sex with her boyfriend. She wouldn't skip it to go on a date.
Nope.
She was
She has
just
to go train
every night.
Right.
And I think to see her in that vulnerable position, I mean, you see her frame. It's not big.
No.
So how did you guys experience that? Like what was it like when you went down there? Like
Yeah, I was just like, oh shit. I was like, and then when I like actually saw her, and then I thought back, I was like, oh shit, like she's been here for like months.
Look at
And,
her.
like,
She
holy
looks
shit.
terrible.
And and then obviously take her and Lev down.
Oh, and Lev has hair.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
that's how you know that because like Lev has hair.
Yeah.
Like
when I walked down to the beach, I actually walked past Abby.
So did I.
did
It took
too.
me a little while to find her.
I think it's done on purpose. I watched a playthrough of somebody.
Like, does it not get triggered the
No,
first
right.
time?
Yeah. I don't think it draws your attention
So
to
basically,
it.
what happens is you walk by her and you see a person that looks like her because of the hair,
Right.
And you keep walking, and then she coughs, and you turn around.
Yeah.
And I think it's like a deliberate reveal of like,
it wants you to
she's
look at
fucked
all
up.
the people
Yeah.
that
Okay.
are
Because
strung up there.
I didn't know if I like messed that up. Good to know I
No.
didn't. Crazy that they put that in on purpose.
I think that in a way, that's where it's like being a video game again, because you know that this game, even though it has open world parts, it's very linear. Like you have to go straight. So I think naturally you walk down to the end, you're like, oh, she's probably gonna be on a spike at the end, and I'll look up, and then you walk down, and I think it's supposed to reveal to you that like, holy shit, she's really been through it.
Yeah. And also that she's not the placement is not like
She's
this
not important.
Right.
Yeah.
It is not this deliberate like pill like she's the big like annoying
No,
person. She's just another one. Like
now might be a good time to talk about the cycle of violence thing,
Yeah.
since we're kind of in this scene and you were just bringing
it's
it
the
up.
whole theme of the game.
So we're there. We're at the beach.
Yeah.
Right. And Ellie just wants to beat the fucking brakes off of Abby.
Wants to kill her. Doesn't
Yes.
want to beat her up. Wants to like maim and kill her.
And Abby is just trying to get Lev in the boat.
And just wants to get out of there.
Like the determination has switched because Abby did let Ellie go, like because of Lev. And now Abby is trying to save Lev still because that has become the focus. And Ellie's like, fuck that, I'm gonna kill you now.
Well, at this point, Abby has already broken the cycle of violence. She could have killed
Yeah, she could.
right.
Ellie and Dina.
And Ellie's not cool with that.
But she no, we kill.
Yeah.
It's done.
If Lev wasn't there, do you think Ellie kills Abby there?
Ellie didn't want to kill Abby. Like Ellie lets her off the pillar and walks her to the boat. It's only as Abby is about to sail away that Ellie realizes that she has to do it. It doesn't seem like she wants to do it. I mean, she chauffeurs her to the boat, and then like holds the side of the boat and is like, "I can't let you go."
Yeah.
Like, there was no determination in that point because she's gone through the whole fucking Rattlers thing, seen how beaten up she is, and is like,
and at that point in the game, also Ellie is beaten up.
Yeah.
And like
she's hurt.
She's hurt. She got shot or something.
No, she got
She
stabbed.
gets stabbed.
The
That's what it was.
tree. Yeah.
The tree. Yeah. So she's like bleeding out everywhere.
yeah.
Tree.
Oh yeah.
tree was
It's like not even sharp. It's just
Yeah.
blunt.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like,
Bad.
But I think that that's an important distinction, that she had actually lost the want to kill her, but it was this force that pulled her through Seattle to California, and in the very last moment, I think the way I read it was like, I've given up so much, I've lost so much that if I let you go now, like everything was for nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that is because then it makes sense why she gives up, because she doesn't want to do it anymore, but she felt like she had to do it.
Like she owes it to Joel or something.
Yeah.
And to your question about would she have done it if Lev wasn't there? I don't think so, because she clearly didn't want to murder her in like cold blood. She wanted to like make her pay for it.
No.
And how can you make somebody in that state pay for anything?
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
She's
like-
she's basically dead.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing left for her to give you
Yeah.
except for her life. And it's like, this isn't going to bring Joel back. This doesn't change what happened. Like,
Right.
Joel is still gone. Your relationship with him was rocky at best.
Yeah.
And you're upset that you don't have the time with him anymore to fix it.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what it is. Is like she does, and that's what that last flashback is. It's like them. That is like clearly the flashback. Is like after the bar. She like brought Dina home and then figured I gotta stop by Joel's house and like try and smooth this over before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Like stops, they talk. The scene made me cry. Like it was brutal.
Yeah.
And and Joel is getting choked up at the thought that there's a chance that he might lose Ellie.
Right.
And she is basically at that point, obviously not knowing that the next day he's going to be killed.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, well, we can figure it out. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Like whatever. We'll talk. They were gonna watch the movie. That's
Yeah.
what. We'll watch the movie tomorrow. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Like we're good. Basically, like we're fine, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's the last conversation they have.
Yeah.
And so now the whole thing is her trying to make up for the fact that she will never get to have to smooth things over with Joel and never get to have the good conversation with Joel, and that their last interaction was her kind of being shitty to him.
Just brushed him off at best.
Yeah. And like he tried to stand up for her and she was just like, fuck off, dude.
Well, and I think the other interesting thing there is in that conversation, she's like, my life was going to have meaning, and now I have fucking nothing. And then her meaning became getting revenge.
Right.
And then she was like, at what cost,
Right.
Like,
but what she's failing to see is that her life does have meaning now. She has a kid. She has Dina. She has a life. She has a community that she can help. And I think that it is all these things kind of come full circle for her, and then she chooses to break the cycle of violence by not killing Abby.
Yeah.
how did you guys feel about the ending in general?
So I was on the edge of my seat for pretty much the entire game, but nothing like really. I mean, I obviously saw the value in like the emotional parts and whatnot, but nothing sat with me until I actually finished the game. Once I finished the game, then once I finished the game and realized that Ellie had lost her whole family, then that in particular, like just that end part, like really like sat with me. Like I had to like, as I was watching the credits, I was kind of like sitting with that for probably next, like I finished it at like 2 a.m. and then I went to bed at like 5. So I was kind of sitting with it for 2 or 3 hours, just thinking about like, damn, like she really just gave up all that shit. And for what?
Right.
Because she comes home, the house is completely empty. Like she probably doesn't even know where Dina went. And and then you just kind of leave and you just kind of go on your next journey, or who the hell knows what's going to happen.
I saw a theory about the end of the game that I talked to Kesh about, or Kesh saw it, we talked about it, is that, so Dina said before Ellie left that Dina's parents said they could always go to Jackson and stay with them.
Yeah.
Right? And then when Ellie goes back to the house
Yeah.
and there's nothing left in the house, when she first gets there, you know, she has no weapons on her.
Yeah.
She has no weapons, no horse, no anything. It's just a backpack. Her fingers are also healed. They've been bitten off, but they're not like fucked up.
Kind of like nubs almost.
They're just like healed nubs. So like there were people saying that like there is a chance that she has already been back to Jackson, kind of got her shit together, and then like went back to the house to get her things that Dina never took out of the house because she assumed Ellie was gonna die. She assumed that Ellie was never gonna come back. So she just left her shit there. So Ellie went to go get her stuff, and then what happens is Ellie goes, picks up the guitar, plays the last song, saying goodbye to Joel, puts the guitar down and leaves.
Okay.
I think that's too optimistic for this.
I
game.
also think it's
like-
too optimistic, but purely just like based on like the information you're given in that thing, like it could track because like she doesn't have any of her shit with her. She is wearing completely different stuff. Like
I think given the way the game treats every other character, it doesn't make sense that Ellie gets to
Have like
be
some
with-
sort of good ending.
Yeah,
or
to
like-
have
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense that anyone's happy at the end of this game.
Yeah,
I
like
think even though she gave up the revenge and ended the cycle of violence,
Yeah.
she doesn't get anything.
yeah, because the damage
because-
has been done.
Yeah.
Like because and you know just
Right,
because you
yeah.
gave it up doesn't mean you didn't partake in it.
Yeah,
No,
and
of
partake in it,
course,
and
yeah.
also just like leave your whole family behind to
Right.
to do this
And
for
and
nothing.
think about the final conversation with Ellie and Dina. Like Ellie borderline told Dina to fuck herself. Was like, that's your call.
Like, this is more important to me than the family.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and like
you and the baby.
and I don't think that Dina on the other end is like, yeah, come back. Like I trust that you won't do this again. Like
Yeah, Dina's not like
that doesn't make
Stupid.
make any sense to me. I will say that I kind of felt the same way you did. It took me a couple days to come around on the ending. I didn't like it at first because I was like, it didn't feel like an ending. Like The Last of Us.
That's why I liked it so much. I actually had a conversation with someone yesterday about Moonlight. I don't know if you guys have seen
haven't
it.
watched
I have seen
Okay.
it.
The ending is it just ends.
It does.
It just
ends.
and you
ends
just have
abruptly.
to sit with it, and it's open. And I was talking to someone who they were like, "Oh, I'm just not used to movies. I'm used to movies having like your normal, your rising action, your climax, and you have your ending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your
And-
3-act.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it just ends because real life, like shit, just ends sometimes. Like you don't always have closure.
Yeah. I wasn't even necessarily looking for closure, but like The Last of Us Part 1 has an ending.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like
The mission came to an end.
right. And the Last of Us it really left out, The Last of Us Part 2 rather left a lot of things unwrapped. Like
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's confirmed now like Abby and Lev get to Santa
Well, the
final
Costa
scene.
Mesa.
Co-
Where the
fuck
fuck
was
are
that?
they going?
Whatever the Fireflies, the transition
Yeah.
they got.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the new splash screen at the
Yeah.
end is their boat
yeah.
landed at, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, and through interviews, they're like, it's been said like, well, doesn't it look like
Honestly,
they
it's
get
like
there?
I think if we're talking about that, like I think Abby ending the cycle of violence on the note that she did allowed her to have that good ending,
No, for sure,
whereas Ellie did not.
for sure. But I'm saying like in general, there was a lot of that ending just had so many question marks,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
but
what happened to Tommy?
Mm-hmm.
What happened to Dina?
Yeah.
What happened? I mean, still, what is the story with the scars? Like, there's just so many things that didn't get wrapped up that at first I was like, I don't know if I love this. And then I spent time with it. I thought more about like kind of stuff you're saying where like, yeah, obviously not everybody gets a happy ending. Obviously you get to think about, that the one person who was never really in the wrong, Abby, got to sort of get a nice ending.
Exactly.
We think. We don't know. They
but
could
I-
have showed up to the Firefly place. It's not even a Firefly place.
Yeah.
And they like...
Right.
But one thing that did kind of bother me, honestly, was that Ellie lived at all at the end because the end from the moment she gets stabbed in the side,
Yeah.
it seems
I
like
thought that was
it seems mortal. Like
Yeah.
she's stabbed, she's walking around, she gets kicked in it, it's like fully debilitating, and then she is out. Where does she go? Like I mean, she's got a boat obviously, but like you get
Where
out,
do you go?
like, and like how do you live for X amount of
Figure it
time to
out,
get
yeah.
back from California with
Yeah.
all these things? That to me was like, not that I wanted her to die by any means, but I was like, that would make sense. If she died right now, I wouldn't love it, but like that tracks. because
that makes sense.
I feel like they draw so much attention to the stab from the tree. Like she pulls up her shirt, she's got scars, she gets punched in it like twice, kicked in it, and then she sits down in the water. I was like, oh, maybe, and she just spent all of her energy fighting this girl. Like I was surprised that she didn't just die there.
Yeah. I think that was deliberate.
Yeah.
Again, like, oh, she's definitely gonna die.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But I mean, outside of the stab, obviously she's a survivalist. I'm sure she figured out her way home, so on and so forth. But I think, having her live was probably good because now she has to live with all of that shit.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, there was a couple things I thought they did really well was when she's on the farm and she's having these like PTSD attacks.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's like incredibly like something they didn't have to put in the game,
Yeah.
but makes so much sense.
And
like,
something you don't think about, right?
Right.
Like obviously you're gonna be traumatized.
she's gonna be fucked.
because every
Like-
especially just think of the 3 days in Seattle. She has to fight the shamblers, the fucking bloaters. She gets killed, but the scars string up. It's like
The lurkers.
like all these things happen, and it makes sense that her adrenaline is on 10 the whole time. She commits all this murder, kills a pregnant woman, and then it makes sense that when life is nice, that the tiniest thing is going to bring back. And it actually makes sense if you read her journals. She keeps drawing Joel's face
and
like
crossing it out and
Yeah,
like,
and
oh,
like-
she's
you
'Cause
you
she's
can
like,
tell that
I'm-
it affects
'cause-
her.
Yeah, because she's starting to forget his face, so she wants to like keep those reminders and whatnot. So,
yeah, it's
That was like another example of how the game, you're just never safe playing the game.
Yeah.
Because like even when you think you're like, oh, I'm on the farm or doing a little bit of narrative stuff, bam,
Oh,
jump
yeah.
scare thing. And I was like, holy.
you did not expect
No
in the
way.
farm. Like I did
No
not
way.
expect to have like a big like
I expected something scary because, once again, the game, to how much this game is like a movie and a story, it's still a video game, and it reminds you of that every now and then. And every time there was a moment of peace, I was like,
What's
when,
up?
when are you gonna fuck with me? Because
Yeah.
this seems like the perfect time to fuck with me. And they do it. Granted, I didn't expect it when it happened, but like the conversation with Dina in the kitchen where she's gonna go do the laundry.
Yep.
The way it's framed, you're looking at the door the whole time.
Oh yeah, and it's like long net like
Yeah. So like the whole time, I mean, I fully expected something bad to happen. I didn't expect to be like jump scared like that, but
Yeah.
I thought something bad was gonna happen.
I was walking around the house super cautiously. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, you're like your feelers are up.
yeah.
I honestly thought that the game was going to end there.
Yeah.
And then I thought Last of Us 3 was going to be the trip to Santa Barbara. But
Interesting. Okay.
yeah. And then
That did feel like one of the endings though.
when
and
it
then you
kept
gotta
going, I
play
was like,
Yeah.
so much more of the game.
that was the common thread of telling people going, yeah, I'm here, and you just go,
Yeah, keep going.
yep, keep going.
So I think that's a really good time to bring in a viewer question. Actual Fint in our Discord wrote in and said, what did you think of the length, and could they have changed anything to improve the game? I personally think the game was way too long.
so I think when I first played it, I think beating it in 3 days really skews your fucking
Yeah.
on how you feel about the length of a game.
Yeah.
When I finally like getting to sit down, I thought it was too long, but then when I think about all the story elements that came together and everything, I was like, maybe it was the perfect length. Maybe it was a proper length to do
The perfect length?
not the perfect length, but it was the length to do what it needed to do with everything and how everything came together.
I think that it was way too long. I think that there were probably a couple flashbacks that could have just been cut. Like the one with Tommy, for instance, is really cool. It establishes that Tommy is like a great sniper.
Yeah.
But
Oh, it
like-
also teaches you how to use the sniper rifle.
right.
That
But
is
like
it's a tutorial.
right. But there were things like that. It was like obviously the flashback with Joel. Like I would never want
I would
that to
never
be
take
taken
away any
away.
moments from my Joel.
But there was definitely some stuff that I was like, and I'll tell you the real pet peeve, and you can actually tell that they could tell the game was getting too long. In the very beginning of the game, everything is look really far, you see this thing, you have to get to it. Until all of a sudden, it's not that anymore. All of a sudden, you're in the new spot. You're in the spot that you're looking at.
At the end, when you were just like jumping
when you're just
to setting to
teleporting.
setting,
It does go
it was
get
weird.
jarring.
It felt a little strange.
Yeah, it was
and
definitely
I was gracious because I was tired of doing the long ass
Seeing the
journey.
hospital across the city, and then I'm like,
And they keep reminding you get in there like, oh, it's still far away, and it's like, man.
I just don't think like. I guess I'm trying to think of like I finished it in 26 hours. I don't know how much stuff they could have cut to bring it. How much unmeaningful stuff they could have cut to bring it under like 20 hours.
I think they could have cut a
I mean, because even if you
of
cut
stuff.
like, was that Tommy scene is maybe like half hour, 45 minutes. That still brings me down to a 25 and a half hour play time. You know.
Right. Well,
That scene
I'm not saying cutting one thing. I'm saying like these big ass fucking journeys.
yeah.
To
So
get
like
to
maybe
places.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
sections
So-
of the trip from like one of the buildings you have to somehow get through.
Right.
Just remove it.
I think
Like,
a lot of the like when Ellie's with Jesse or when she's with Dina or when Abby's with Levin, there's like obviously meaningful conversations that happen and progress the story. Those are super important. A lot of the time, those make sense. But a lot of the solo Ellie time was like it was like scary.
It's kind of just playing the video game.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Couple things about it, a couple things that were said. The flashback with Tommy and the sniper thing. There is a conversation with Tommy and Ellie where he's like, "How are you and Joel? Like,
It's
can
that
you-
one.
Can you guys
Well,
be
yes, but-
like cool?"
But that's not the only time that Ellie and Joel having a weird relationship is established. You know what I mean? Like,
But it is someone on the outside being like, "You
but
guys
that
matter to each
conversation
other."
definitely could have happened when like when Tommy meets up with them in the movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you
There's-
could have gotten away with some conversations placed in different spots in the game
And then
and gotten the same results.
yeah.
I also am a fan for this game of the like you look really far and have to get there. I don't think those were bad.
Oh,
Sorry, we just had a light fall over in the studio. That's our bad.
Not a light we're using, fortunately. Because I'm trying to think of like the most concise way to say this, but those journeys really like drove home how difficult it is to live in the world that they're living in and do the things that they need to do. So it wasn't like, oh, let's go to that building and we just get to like jaunt there and then we're there. It really was like everything was hard to do because in that world everything is hard to do and you're risking your life going outside.
every time you leave your safe
And
spot.
like you can't just like go to a place, like the world is in ruin. So I think
You can't just go to a place until you can. Like,
so what I want to say is I think my issue is that later that is not the case.
yeah.
I don't like that because I think it is so important that you experience how hard it is to get places that later it's an issue when you don't. I wouldn't say make the whole game jump to different places. I think it's way more important to have that super deliberate, slow-paced, detailed journey to everywhere rather than like, hey, we're in Santa Barbara. And
I
now
just
we're
think
at
there's
the camp.
I just think there's a middle ground there. Like there's just I think that it makes parts of the game okay, like to your point about not liking Abby. You have to spend so long as Abby getting to certain places and whatever, and like maybe you just didn't need to do that. Like maybe a Scar could have jumped you sooner, and maybe like XYZ. I agree with you that definitely the exploration is actually like the best part of the game, but they make the game feel longer and they make it feel more tedious by a kind of, and it's a Naughty Dog trope. Like Naughty Dog loves in Uncharted games, in the first Last of Us, and this Last
there
of
are
Us,
some
to be
zones
like-
in Uncharted games that could be half of what they are.
right. And that's my point. Is like you're right about needing that detailed time to explain the struggle, but like how much of it? I think the game would have been 30 hours. I mean, granted, I had the longest play time out of anybody, but most people were in this like 25 to 30 hour range.
Yeah, it was like 26.
I think it could have been like a super fucking tight, amazing 20 hours, and you would still feel the same because here's the thing: you still love traveling to the Scar Island. You still love the story in Santa Barbara. It's not worse because you didn't experience the travel between it, you know? And I think that early on, it's important to be Ellie and to spend all this time getting from place to place, but like maybe it doesn't need to be so far away, or at least don't remind me how far away it is constantly, because that at least makes you feel like
It's taking forever.
because it's in times like those where I was reminded that I was playing a video game in a way where it's like, right, I have to go there.
There's a checkpoint.
Right.
Oh, go ahead.
I actually don't mind that at all. I don't like. I know I'm playing a fucking video game. I know there's like weird. Obviously, there's weird like maybe like unimmersive like reminders and whatnot. But like at the end of the day, like I know I'm playing this video game and I know I can pick it up, put it down whenever I want to. The only time I ever felt like something was tedious in the whole entire game was the entire Santa Barbara segment.
Really?
That was at the point of the game where I was like, okay, I'm ready for this to be over. But like,
that part flew by though.
it did fly by, right? But by that point, I was already ready to be done with it. But everything else before that, I loved all of that, like just exploring all of Seattle and whatnot and getting a look at
So
it.
did I.
And I also look at it at the lens of this is, I had a note about it. I was thinking about how it felt in The Last of Us 1 when you were in Boston, even though it was so short. And like, I just imagine like if I was someone who was from Seattle and got to do such large exploration from point to point to point and like seeing all these like far spots and landmarks and whatnot, and thinking of like how my friends in Seattle would, also like think about playing this game being from there.
Yeah. No, those things are always so cool. I remember when The Last of Us 1 came out and then you boot up the game and you're in Boston. I was like, holy shit, this is so cool. And then you go to places and you're like, this is fucking awesome. Like, as far as the length for the game, I've been thinking about it like while we've been having the conversation, like while we're trying to decide like what parts of the game could have been shortened or whatever. And I'm thinking about it and I'm like, that was kind of important. That was kind of important. That was kind of, and I feel like almost everything in the game needs to be there, but I think that it is because of the type of game it is and how you experience the game is what makes it so tough. Because I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, my game time was 26 hours, right? By the time I got to the 20-hour mark, I was like, please, can this fucking be over?
Oh, it's an exhausting game.
But now I'm thinking about what I'm playing now. I'm playing Ghost.
Yeah.
And I'm about 20 hours in, and I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck, I can't wait to play more Ghost.
Right.
But that's
Like-
a different. But an
It's totally
open world game, you expect to play for hours
right,
and hours.
but I
and
think
hours.
what I'm trying to get at is like it is because of how the game is presented to you and the content of the game is like draining and exhausting and
What I
Not
will
even
say,
comparing it to other games. Like it is like it could have been a 10-hour game, and if it was that exhausting, it is still that
Exhausting,
taxing. Like at the end of your playthrough, you're like, man, that was heavy. Like if you played for 5 hours, that was heavy. If you played for 2 hours, that was heavy. Like it being like 26 hours, not like terribly long for like games right now.
right.
But it feels
that
way
is
longer.
pretty long for a single player game.
At least for like a linear game. It's
Yeah.
very
I
long.
think it still feels longer because of how taxing it is on the player. From
Definitely
tension,
true.
Drama.
What I would say is that the game was longer, and Naughty Dog cut stuff out of it.
And I'm
So-
glad they did.
Right, and so that's kind of my point. Is like there is still an amazing story there with stuff that maybe was world building, maybe was relationship building, that like could have been cut out. You know, just like little things that were like nice, but they extended the game. Like how much time you spend with Manny maybe could have been shortened a little.
But
bit.
then if they cut that stuff out, would you still have this? Would you then have the same criticism that you have about them cutting the Scar stuff out?
Maybe.
Right. That's what I think it's time.
But my point is that I think they kind of go too deep on the wolves anyway. So maybe some of that stuff could have been trimmed out. Like think about how much time you spend in the wolf base before you sneak out. Maybe that section could have been trimmed down. Maybe people would have been happier with the game.
I definitely would have been in the moment that I was playing it because
So
I hated Abby.
So that's what I'm saying. Like obviously you play through the game and you're like, oh, this is really cool. I can't imagine it without it. But there's a version of that story without it that is shorter and more concise and whatever. Because a lot of the complaints that come out about this game, and we're being super critical, right? Like I love the game. I think it's amazing. But like,
yeah, I mean, at the top of this episode, we all four of us were like, "This game is amazing."
but it is certainly not without its flaws.
Yeah, I don't. Nothing is perfect.
Yes.
But when you fuck was I gonna say? Oh man, I lost my damn train of thought.
Well, to things that could get cut, right? we're talking about like what are little things that get cut, and then I think about some of the little things in the game, and I'm like, man, those were awesome, and I would not want to trade them. Like when you are in the open world area of Seattle in the beginning, the downtown area, and you go into the music shop, and you have the probably my favorite experience in any Last of Us anything game sequence anything, which is, and you can totally miss it.
I did miss it.
And I'm so sorry you did, because I was literally mouth agape playing the game, and it said out loud to myself, this is why these are the best games ever made.
Yeah.
And it is, and it's so, like, when we talk about it, it's so, like, whatever. And it is just like, Ellie goes in, finds a guitar, sits down, and starts playing a song that everybody knows.
Yeah.
But she is doing a version that, because she probably has never heard the fucking song.
Yeah.
Or has heard like a shitty old recording of it
Joel's
on a tape.
Or heard someone else cover it.
Right?
Yeah.
And she is just singing the song to someone that she loves in this fucked up world. And for a moment, they are, the way Dina is looking at her, like, this is nice, this is beautiful, whatever. And like, this is what these games are about, or these interactions.
Yeah, and
a little tidbit about that song. The only reason it's in the game is because someone at Naughty Dog is married to the guitarist of the band, and they were able to get the license.
The license for it? That's
song.
awesome.
Because there's a song in the first game that they had to pay like $70K for.
Oh,
I remember what I was going to say. A lot of the complaints about the game, and it's actually one of your complaints, is that you spend too much time as Abby. Like, and maybe there are ways to mitigate that kind of shit, because like I've spent a lot of time trying to understand like why people hated it, because I didn't walk away hating it. I walked away wanting more and wishing things were a little different, but by no means did I hate it. There's a clip of PewDiePie playing as Abby, and he does the gun training. They say like, oh, you can take your pistol and go to the range, and he's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like I really have to play as Abby right now, and then you play as her for a long time. And I think that is kind of like, you know, like people already hated Abby,
right?
Didn't want to play as her, and that's what you experienced, right? Like you tuned out for hours.
Yeah. My note about this, when like it's a big chunk of words I put down when I was starting out as Abby, and like it was right around when I got through the scene with her dad, and I wrote down, I was like, this would have been fine if I just got like a slew of flashbacks that I didn't even really play through, like maybe walking simulator type stuff. Found out it was her dad, that we used the doctor, found out that she trained a bunch, and like maybe we do this for like a little bit where it's like we really just like show me everything I need to know, which is different. A different sort of goal of Naughty Dog's. So when I was doing that, I was like, just show me everything that I need to know to understand, so that I can get back to Ellie and the story that is what's important and what I care about right here. Naughty Dog's intention was, we don't care that you know it. We need you to experience it and feel it, so that you like feel the weight of
when
this
the time
game.
comes, you feel bad about every decision you have to make.
And that was my folly, is like I was sitting there and I was like, just tell me what I need to know so I can move on and get to the thing that I want to get to. But Naughty Dog said, no, you can fuck off. We need you to feel that.
Yeah, straight up.
And so because of that, like, and I don't really think I'm equipped to say like, hey, let's nix X, Y, and Z from the game, and that would make it better. Like, especially I'm like a couple weeks removed from it, so I definitely am like feeling better about those things. And like I said, I did come around on Abby like through her playthrough. But I feel like to sort of understand her and feel the way that Naughty Dog needed me to feel to understand everyone that is involved in that story, it needed to have the parts that it had.
Yeah.
I believe there are ways they could have trimmed it down, though. For instance,
yeah, they could like cut little things from everywhere or whatever. And,
but it's a 25, 30-hour game. Like you cut 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. That chunks it down quite a bit. Like think about when you start playing as Abby, you're on this weird like mission, like hunting for your dad. Like maybe that one starts as you get through the gate, and you're like, we've been looking for you. Like Nick said, I'm not a game developer. I don't think that makes my claim wrong. Like it's not up to me to figure out how to make the game concise. It's up to Naughty Dog, and I think that. Maybe it sounds like I'm the odd man out here, but I think that most people that play this game, people of what I read, questions from viewers, the game overstays its welcome by like a couple hours.
Yeah.
I also think it does. I just don't know
So do
how
I.
to change
Yeah,
it.
that's
Yes.
where I was kind of at. Like I said earlier, I was just about to get this. I was at Santa Barbara. And I'm like, when is this gonna end? And then but when I think back, I'm like, where could it have ended, and like how? And
Right.
But that's Neil Druckmann's job, not
exactly,
yours.
yeah, that's exactly. It's not
Like,
my
But
job.
then at the end of the day, Neil Druckmann told the story he wants to tell.
Right.
Yeah.
So like,
and I did enjoy it, even though it did. Obviously you can have your criticisms, but I was gonna say something real quick.
Here you go.
To Big Nick's point, because he was talking about the hub, and I wanted to touch upon that because the hub in Seattle, which was at the beginning of the game, but that was the only section of the game that was like that.
Yeah.
And I really, like, when I got the taste of that, I explored every single thing, and I got every single achievement that you could have gotten in that area, and I wanted more of that in the game, and I didn't get that, which I'm not necessarily mad at, but I think, like, it was definitely, like, a really cool experience that I had, because there were so many, like, there were, like, side buildings that you could have missed, if you didn't explore enough, and the extra rooms, what they did is they had their own stories, with notes. They had bespoke objects that, props that weren't anywhere else in the game, and, like the music store and the pet store. So I think that was definitely a very cool part of the
also
game.
like
that they
character
did.
upgrades. Like you
Yeah.
can get
Yeah.
like good items and
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, because
in
the pet store had the handgun
handgun
holster.
holster.
Dude, it also, if I could just share a quick little story about the pet store. You know how there's the bathroom with there's an infected in the bathroom of Barcos?
Yeah.
Maybe this happened for
Oh,
everyone,
no, the infected
and I'm
was
just
in
stupid.
the coffee shop.
No, it's in the bathroom.
It's
at
in the
Barco's.
bathroom
I
at
thought it was the
Barco's.
bathroom of the coffee shop, and then you got the key from there. Oh, all right.
No.
You go to Barco's, you go in, everything's chill, and they're talking. They're just like doing normal shit. And I did this after the music scene. So I'm like, my guard's kind of off. I'm like a little worried, but my guard's kind of off. We're early in the game. We did a music scene. They start playing piano in the background. There's like this nice little song. And I'm like, okay, like music's pretty telling in games typically. Like if it starts to do this, there's like drums and shit. I'm like about to fight someone. If there's like this nice piano, maybe it's fine. And the only bathroom in the whole game that I went in like willy
Just
nilly,
like boom.
and pop, he's there. What pop? Fucking trying to get after me. And I was like, hey, you put the nice piano song here. That was mean of the game. Like that.
funny.
Oh, that part.
Allie
that
was in my
mad.
room when I played that part, and she was like, I was sitting there tense,
Yeah.
because the whole fucking game was tense, and she's like, why are you playing this game? You don't like scary games. And I was like, I didn't know it was scary.
Neither
Like
did
The
I.
Last of Us 1 was not scary like this is scary.
Yeah.
And I was like, but it's fine right now. Boom, the jump scare happens, and I was like, I'm talking to
only
my
had-
fucking girlfriend, like,
Yeah.
get out of here.
I only had like 2 jump scares in the game.
You play
and-
scary games all the
Yes,
time.
so this
We'll
is-
go deep.
But
on the
here, but
horror
I
thing
need
soon.
the only jump scare that really got me was you're in the second floor of a building, and I went to go fix a gun, and
Yup.
the guy, you hear his voice, and you can't press triangle fast enough, and he chokes you, and that shit scared the shit out of me.
Yeah,
So-
and they were in a room that was locked, and I was like, why is that
That's
door
the
locked?
only time it does it in the whole game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why is that door locked? But then you can go
And then
down to the basement, but I decided to go up to the second floor. So.
Yeah.
I think it's dumb that that's the only time that happens, by the way. I think that they should have, much like, when, granted it didn't wind up being true, but when Resident Evil 3 was coming out, it was rumored that Nemesis could get into these safe rooms. And,
That would have been
and
miserable.
And I will say that I felt a sense of relief for so long every time I found a workbench.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, awesome, I'm safe. And
So did I.
when that was taken away from me, I was on edge the rest of the game. But I feel like there were times like at the Scar Island where like it would have made sense to
Yeah.
get scared or
caught.
something.
I think that was like, I think it was a, like I think I would have liked to see it a couple times, but I think it was good that it only happened once.
Yeah.
because it did keep you
yes.
on. It still kept you on edge, even though
Yes.
it did only happen
and
once.
I will say that oftentimes in video games, my complaint is that they do a cool thing too many times.
Yeah.
But I do think that it was like an amazing mechanic that just like got dropped. It was like, gotcha. And you didn't have to go in that room.
no.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
I think it, yeah, and like I said, I think it did its job by only doing it once. I mean, obviously, if you play the game again, like you
Yeah.
know, it only happens one time. But
so you couldn't open that room.
No, it's locked.
The door, you go in, so you're in the
'Cause they're in
apartment
there.
buildings.
Yeah.
yeah,
And you do you know details about it?
yeah. So
Like
actually,
that I
if you climb into the basement, you could have gotten to the first floor, but a lot of people decided to jump onto the truck up to the second floor because that basement is it's definitely hard to see, but it's possible because
They were in the the people that come get you.
no,
were in
they're
the
on they're on the first floor,
Yeah.
right? But the first floor door is locked. So if you would have seen the entrance to go into the basement, you can come up and around the basement. Because what'll happen is when you go down to the first floor after everyone's dead, you'll see on the door that you can get in from the basement that there's a sound trap.
Oh.
But obviously, like I
might
think
have-
most people are going to go to the second floor because it's super easy to
It
see
looks
the
like
truck.
you can go there.
Yeah, the basement is like it's definitely something you'll have to check out if you do.
But they're behind a door that's in the apartment.
Yeah,
And I
because
was like, oh, I
they
must just
mention
have to
it.
find-
They mention it after. Like Ellie goes in them, she's like, they were waiting in here. Like they thought
Yeah.
I was one of them.
There was another thing that I got tricked by in the game. When you're in the operating room, which that whole hospital sequence in the quarantine zone is like super fucking scary. But when you're on your way to do the generator in the operating area, so you know how there's infected in the wall, which is just so evil.
Yeah,
so evil of
cursed.
them to put infected in the wall. I definitely got by a few of them. Definitely
All
the
of
first
them,
one. Yeah.
every single one,
But-
even when I'm standing there with the gun pointed at the wall, and I take one little half step forward, and it's like, "Rah!"
So
and I go, "Ah!"
the way I started dealing with the wall infected was I would see them and be like, okay, I got this. Take a big breath and then sprint at them and just like bam, like as soon as they did it. So I was like, I'm moving fast too. Like I'm gonna scare you, kind of deal. So I did that, and nothing happened. I was like, you guys put a fake infected in the wall
It was
here.
like the one time.
But then I crawl through the ceiling thing. I turn the generator on, come back. They're creeping around at this point, and I kill them. And then I'm like, oh, let me go in that room. There's something flashing in there. Like I just used my resources. I used like some of my paper. Where I was like, there was shit I couldn't pick up in that room. I go in the room. Now it decides to jump out at me. I was furious with them. I was like, I had to jump on you 10 minutes ago.
I feel like
Oh, I was so mad.
what Devin said earlier about like I know I'm playing a video game. I got if if it did it to me once, I was on edge the rest of the time. Like the first time it happens is when you're playing as Abby in the infected spore building and whatever, and I was just ready every single time after that. I headshotted every single fucking one, and because they often put them in a place where you can fire your gun and not have consequences.
yeah, or there was obviously something important
yeah.
in that room.
I guess the only one that got me was because I didn't look. There's one on the ceiling in that sequence.
Yeah.
Because
Evil.
I did at a certain point I was like I don't care anymore. I just want to speed run this. So I was like running through this room, and as I was running, one fell from the ceiling, and I was
Yeah,
like,
and that's like-
okay, that was severely fucked up. I have to step out for a second. I'm gonna piss my pants.
Yeah.
I'll BRB.
That's what happens when we do the long ones.
I have
say-
a.
Just to not do too much while Sean's not super important.
Not
I was
super important.
I think literally the only thing that annoyed me as playing as Abby was that I had to build my skills up again.
So
That's the
okay.
only part that that annoyed
can
me. I loved everything. And
Can I actually read you a note
yeah.
that I wrote?
You're allowed.
Listen to this.
Listen to what I wrote.
Listen how stupid I am. I said, so I've just gotten to Abby. So it says basically Abby's storyline. I'm just making.
reading it to yourself or
well,
us?
I don't know if I want to read it to everyone because it might be like kind of broken up. So I don't want to start reading it and have it not make sense. Right around when you're leaving the stadium, you're leaving the stadium. You do the shooting range, and then there's like a level up zone, like right around there. And I wrote, leveling up shouldn't be in this. I don't feel attached, and I feel like I want to finish it, which I've talked about. And when they did that, when they introduced leveling up, I was still not realizing how long I was gonna play as Abby for.
Oh, as soon as I hit
So when
start
I
and I
saw
saw
that-
there was a full menu, I was like,
My note literally says,
me and you are going to get familiar.
Nope. My note says this is rushed. They are rushing this like fake, like, oh, level up. Like maybe like because with Ellie, you can level up every gun like 4 times or whatever. I was like, they're gonna give me 2 fucking guns that level up 2 times. They're just trying to get me to like be interactive with this part of the story, but I don't care. I was so wrong.
Yeah, they give you the
and
full
then I ended
Monty.
up I had to do it all.
She gets all new
But
guns.
when I got introduced to doing that shit with her, I was like, are you guys?
She gets my favorite gun
I
in
was
the
like,
game.
guys, we're not playing as her forever, right? I was wrong. Is it the flamethrower?
The hunting pistol.
That was my next guess.
Hunting pistol whips.
I don't think I used
The
it.
flamethrower was sick because the flamethrower I used on the wall zombies.
Nice.
Yeah,
I used
would
them on the
I
big
would
guys.
zap them before they got
I used
out.
them on the big guys. I
No,
have
the hunting pistol is awesome, dude. It's mostly one shot.
Oh yeah, especially if you did the.
Yeah.
Did anyone else think that the large Seraphite woman looked like the headmaster from Matilda?
Yes.
Thank you. Hell
So-
yeah, let's go.
It's actually funny you would bring up the large Seraphite woman. Also, I was listening in the bathroom, so I didn't miss anything.
Perfect.
Nice.
The large Seraphite woman was a big problem for me because it was the first time in the game that I could tell that they were just reusing assets. Every time you interact with any enemy in that game, it's like an individual, right? It's like it's a person's name. They look different.
Yeah, that's the craziest part. They usually say, like, someone
Yeah.
yelled and be like, "Oh, Brian," like,
Yeah.
whatever.
They've got a hat. They've got a different hair. Maybe it's an Asian woman. Maybe it's a white guy. Whatever. Everybody was different. And then they have this like big brutish woman with an axe. And then I see and they do an elaborate murder of this woman.
Oh, yeah.
Abby sticks the fucking pickaxe in her face. And then you come to the same area about 2 hours later, and she's back. And it's like that was the first time I was like, "What?"
Yeah, that was me and you had the same complaint where that it was the only time where I was like, "This is video game ass shit,"
Yeah.
where it's like clones of the same brutish woman.
Yeah.
Y'all
I had
lazy.
another question about some of the like horror and suspense elements.
Yeah.
You play sometimes as just Ellie or just Abby,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
sometimes you've got a companion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you find that you were like you felt a little more safe or less on edge when you had a companion
Always.
versus the,
Yep.
the solo
in
missions?
any
Okay.
horror game, if I have someone to play with or a companion, I am 100% not scared of that game.
Because I realized it at one point. I forget like which part it was, but it made me. I remember it made me write the question down. I was like, I think I was going somewhere with I think it might have been when you meet up with Jesse, and you like find Jesse, and then you're like together, and I was like, oh, well now I've like got someone. Like I'm still alone in my room, and the game is scary for sure, but I've like got someone, and I had never like really because I don't play horror games, so I've never experienced that like digital companion that made me not scared in real life. It was such a weird thing, and I was like, huh, that's like such an interesting mechanic that they put in the game is like this sense of relief that I'm maybe not going to be as scared because I know I can like maybe maybe a conversation's going to happen with this person. I can always like do the listen, and I know that they're going to be there as
I think
as
why
well
the
as
digital
maybe a
companions
people thing.
bring me relief is I know, and this is like more video game ass shit, is like I know that the companion will do some clunky ass shit
Yes.
that will either distract the bad guys or at least like reveal what's going on in that situation. Or if something scary is about to happen, they'll like all of a sudden will like crouch down and like hide behind something.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, something's about to happen.
Yeah, so that was extreme video game stuff where I was like, I could just tell what was going to happen. Nick was in my room once. We walked through a room, and Dina pulls out her gun, and I was like, Dina decided it's gun time, I guess. Like, and it's actually you're in the TV station. You're about to get to where the scars have hung everybody and ripped their entrails out. And all of a sudden, Dina just whips her pistol out, and I'm like,
Is it
hello?
gun time?
hello, Dina?
Yeah. There weren't many times in my playthrough when the companions did like that kind of obvious shit, or maybe I just missed it.
I think the companions telegraph a lot. I knew specifically by the crouching or standing. If she just walked into a room,
Like all willy nilly.
yeah, I was
We're
like,
good.
Okay, I guess
for sure.
I guess the jump scare is through a door then because it's not happening right now.
Yeah, but that was definitely interesting for me to feel like kind of get that sense of relief that I was like, okay, I've got someone here with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it for sure relieves you in some weird way, even though it's all programmed into the game.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that person is not with you.
Something I really liked was I really appreciated when the character would say, "Okay, that was all of them."
Yeah.
I was like, awesome.
Well, yeah,
yeah,
I
this is-
Yeah, thank God.
I figured out like super early on that they always kill the last one. Like whatever character you're with kills the last bad guy or like fights with the one the whole time, and then when you're like done fighting him, they kill him, and you're like, okay, this is like end of the mission here.
I thought of a sequence I could get cut out of the game.
Okay.
When you're as Abby with Manny going down the train tracks,
Yeah,
and there's
I hated
all
that.
wait,
you're going. I forget where you're going, but you guys are going somewhere.
is
and
it you, Manny, and Mel?
Yes.
Yeah.
See, my favorite conversation of the whole game happens there, and it's because they reference Princess Mononoke.
Oh. Well, I think
I
that
hated
whole
that whole
section.
part of the
yeah,
game.
I think
Sucks. Yeah.
there nothing. I guess except for this.
To my point earlier,
reference.
that conversation could have happened in the Home Depot.
Right. Exactly.
Like, but that's what I'm saying. All this shit is kind of malleable.
Right. That section with the train track, like that's a pretty long
Yeah.
combat area
Yeah.
that could just get taken out and would not change anything that happens.
To anybody who didn't catch it, in the Home Depot, it's like very clearly a Home Depot. It's like an orange building on the outside. They say, Manny's like, oh, this is way cooler than what I would have been doing at home. And Abby's like, what would you been doing? He's like, drinking beer, watching anime. And then later on, when you're standing outside, after the train tracks, you're like standing outside a building trying to get in. And Manny's like, oh, I can't wait to go home and like watch this movie. And Abby's like, oh, what's the story of the movie? He's like, it's about some girl that someone rides a wolf. Yeah. And I was like, what, you guys talking about Princess Mononoke in this game? For what?
For no reason.
See, I was so checked out that I didn't hear that conversation because that was height of me being mad that I was playing as Abby.
What was I just? I actually. Hello. When did Princess Mononoke come out? 1997.
97.
Okay. Because the funny thing about the Aha song, Aha, is that the name?
Mm-hmm.
It actually like the only way it canonically works is it leaked on YouTube like a couple months before because the song released after Outbreak Day. Like
what day did?
Like I don't like in. You know, if you're looking at a calendar and comparing our worlds.
Talking about Aha, Take On Me.
Yes, that
song came out in like the 80s, didn't it?
It did.
Wait, Take On Me?
Based on the conversation I heard in the...
Yeah, Take On Me came out in like 85.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I literally listened to the interview with Neil Druckmann
but
they
now,
say...
Yeah,
what does he say?
I get that, but...
He says that the song leaked on YouTube but before...
Maybe a cover of it. Maybe.
Before it ever came out physically... because basically, I mean, maybe I'm thinking of a different song.
It could be a different song. Maybe it's a Pearl Jam song because there's a part
maybe it was
with the
a
Pearl Jam song.
Maybe that's what they're talking about.
Because there is a part where the Pearl Jam song, and
I
on the
think
wall,
it was-
and on
it
the
was a
wall
Pearl Jam
in the
song.
music store is a poster for that Pearl Jam record
Yeah.
that came out in 2013.
Yeah. Sorry. It was a Pearl Jam song. It was a Pearl Jam song.
Yeah.
I missed Pearl Jam song.
Pearl Jam.
Oh, that part rocks too. She's like humming the
Future
song.
Days, right?
Yeah.
That's like the big song.
I was going to say another suspense thing that I ran into, which was like really cool, is like, do I break this window or do I not?
Yeah.
And like,
Dude.
because like the quiet moments were the most tense ones because like, am I allowed to explore freely? Like, how careful do I be? How careful do I have to be?
Yeah.
Because, you know, sometimes, you know, you're just like, now you're like on edge. You're like, okay, can I do this? Can I do like, is someone going to jump out at me if I like fire off my gun or something like that? But something I really hate, which is just like a trope and it's really annoying to me, is like sometimes they would just be like doing something or talking so loud.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I'm like, if this was me, I'd like, stop attracting attention.
Yeah. Yeah, there were
fucking mouth.
side note about the glass thing. I actually, when I used to work at Apple, I worked with a kid who left Apple to go to Naughty Dog, and his focus was the glass breaking sound, which is crazy when I found that out because I was like, that's because I noticed that immediately how deep and
it's
like and just like how much I didn't want to do it, how fucking loud it was,
And then
how,
when you step on the glass, it's like
it cracks exactly. And as a kid, I remember very vividly because I had played Uncharted 1 through 3, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to work at Naughty Dog," and I was like, "Wow, that's fucking sick." And then I moved out here, and he messaged me, and he's like, "Oh, I'm working at Naughty Dog. We should get coffee." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe someday." And then I saw Khalif Adams on Twitter actually quote tweeted it and said, "Oh, Jesse James Garcia," and I was like, "Wait." Jesse made the glass breaking noise? Like, what
he
the
told
fuck?
you, bro.
Another cool thing about the glass breaking, in addition to noise, was actually the animation. Because when you smash the glass, they'll cover their face and they will actually recoil. When you smash it. Like the weight of that is really cool.
Yeah.
Something that I kind of, this is maybe video game thing. I spent as much time as I could doing stealth mode and like just trying to like stealth kill everyone. I didn't want to ever be noticed. Didn't want to like do these like big fights and whatever, but I did need to explore everything.
Yeah.
And so when I got when I got to a part with glass, I was like, well, I'm going in there because I need whatever fucking little superhero card you got in there, whatever X-Man
or scissors.
Yeah, or scissors. I need it. Whatever it is, the safe, whatever. I need to get in there. And so I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna fucking break this thing. If they run at me, I'm just gonna blast them. It wasn't like, my brain wasn't like, if I break this thing, I'm going to alert them and I'm going to have to like deal with like not being found, I was like,
Gun it out.
I was like, guess what? I'm gonna get found right now for the fucking X-Man card. Bink, and then that was it. And I would, if they showed up, I was just like blast, blast, blast. But otherwise, I was really trying to do like super stealth.
To Dev's point about like character, like your companion who are like talking really loudly and stuff.
Yeah.
There were a couple of things in that they make you they go through so much detail to make things like wildly realistic, and then they're like, you can bend your imagination for this thing.
Yeah.
Like you guys talking. Like, here's a perfect example. If your companion was out of position, they were invisible to the AI. But you were like the target and they see it. Another thing, and this was like kind of a dumb thing, but I thought about it every time it happened. In the flashback with Joel, where he pushes you in the water, I'm like, she's got her journal in there. Like, that thing's tanked now. Like, and every time she gets in the water, I'm like, how can she write in the journal anymore? Like,
I think that like
it's in a Ziploc bag, dude.
Yeah,
I guess.
True. She's a survivalist.
Yeah, she knows how.
Come on, man.
I've actually read like or watched like numerous things on like how companions work, and like obviously like them running around the battlefield is like super immersion breaking, but it just kind of has to work that way because
of course
it would just be mad fucking annoying if they were just
of course.
We'll see.
But when you're alone, I'll tell you what, there were parts that I was frozen in terror and had to turn the game off, had to stop playing the game. Like, I didn't when you're about to go into the quarantine zone of the hospital,
the hospital is so deeply cursed.
That was like the most like the craziest feeling.
You had to fight the rat king.
You guys had
not even there. It was the flappy fucking, the girl drops you off. She's like, go in there.
Oh, okay.
It's evil in there, but go for it. I sat there looking at my TV at like 11:30 p.m. looking at my TV, just looking at the door. Game wasn't even paused. I was just sitting there. I was like, this is how I would be. And if I was her, I would just be sitting there. Is it worth going in there? And
Shotgun out.
I sat there for about 20 minutes, and I said, cool, I'm going to play League of Legends.
20 minutes?
I'm not kidding. That, like, my playthrough was like, it was like 26 and a half hours, but it felt like when, especially
the half hour was you standing there.
For a lot of parts in the game, I was sitting there, I was like, weighing my options. Am I going in here? Nope. Turn the game off. Next morning, windows open. Lights are on. I'm like, I got to do this. I get it in my head, I'm going to do it. Turn the game on. Abby's fucking crouched right there, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna look at this door for 20 minutes, and then I did. I couldn't go in there.
40 minutes total
just sitting there looking at the door, just thinking like, man, is it gonna be scary? Are they gonna be?
The answer is yes, it is gonna be scary.
And dude, it made me nauseous.
You guys had built that part up to me so much. You guys were like, I'm fucking terrified. This part was scary.
It scared the shit out of me.
That part wasn't that scary for me.
Oh, it scared me so
Like,
I wonder if
I
it's
knew-
because I hyped it up too much, and I wish I hadn't. But
Maybe. I mean,
you
was
would have just
creepy.
gone in there.
No, but like I felt weird walking through the flappy door, and I was like,
it was just foul.
And I was like, there's gonna be
more.
someone on the other side, but I was like, it wasn't.
But then they're not even there for so long. The game's evil, man.
Oh yeah. I think like, so here's, maybe this might work for you. A little tip that I used when I was a child is this worked in Resident Evil because of the doors, how they worked, but I would close my eyes and then I would do the thing.
Yeah.
And then when like a monster's like started attacking me, then I'd be like, I'm already getting attacked, then I can open my eyes and do the thing.
There was a point
because I missed the jump scare, so that's like usually honestly the jump scare is the scariest part.
So that's the thing is Nick and Big Nick are like, game's fucking scary. You're not even the scariest part. I would never got scared because I was afraid of jump scares. Jump scares are the thing that terrify me. I'm actually not that scared of like, oh, something might be out there.
Oh, I'm more scared
Evil
of the
and scary
tension
stuff. Yeah.
of what could be.
That's
that's
what affects me.
and that's
most.
that's like
Jump scares. I think are just flat out mean.
Jump scares are demonic.
But like, there is a real art in like making you uneasy and
Yeah.
tense. Like, especially when you don't know if you can trust a fucking workbench and shit. And like, I don't know if I can trust the infected in the wall thing. Like, that is way scarier of a reality to me than like, like jump scares. Honestly, to me, have always felt just cheap. It's like you just made me like flinch essentially. With like 2 for flinching kind of. It's like, come on. But if you can like write a thing and put me in a world that I'm scared to just like stand in a corner in where I should be safe, that is like what does it.
Yeah, it was what was I gonna say? I was thinking about like how like a lot of the like jump scares are like really annoying to me, but generally like I definitely enjoyed the tense stuff in the hospital when you had to like get the power back on and then open each door individually.
Yes, yeah.
That was
Oh,
definitely like
my God, dude.
and like the gunk was everywhere.
Dude, the hospital's cursed.
It's
And then
so-
finally when the Rat King ran the
Rat
hole through,
King.
and then you had to go through the hole that he
Dude,
just ran
oh
through.
my God,
Yeah, that was
Then
fucked
get to the
up.
fucking ambulance.
Dude, in the one room that's just like it's like a big vagina.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
I, tried
that's
to
where
I
it's-
tried to crawl through
so
there a
did
lot.
I.
So did I.
I was like,
Man.
I'm going in there.
Back into the womb.
Yeah.
Kind of on the subject of the Rat King, I think this is a good time to bring in another viewer question. Bill Harding wrote in and asked, who is the non-playable character that you were interested in most from the story and why?
Sean wants it to be the Rat King.
Well, no, but I was pretty interested in the Rat King.
The Rat
I read
King,
up on a
yeah.
lot of the lore of the Rat King.
Yeah, when you
Really?
like notes and stuff about the Rat
yeah.
King. Yeah, hell yeah.
Because so do you know like why?
No, I think I got through there. I tried to get through there so quick.
I did my best to explore everything. I just took it super slow. Took a lot of breaks.
But do you know why it is the way it is?
Not sure.
No.
I might have missed it.
So through notes that you read in the environment,
In the hospital.
yes.
Okay.
Basically, what happened was everybody got sick and they closed them all
Oh
in this
yeah,
room.
I do remember this. Yeah.
And they just like fucking fused together. So they basically had like 20 sick people, and they just like anybody who wasn't strapped to a hospital bed just became the monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because that was like early days, and think about it, it was like 20 years ago.
Right, so
Yeah.
they've
So
just
they've
been
been,
in
like,
there fucking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
big
I,
yucko.
was one of the notes from the nurse, and she's like, I don't know if what we're doing is right.
Yeah, she's like,
yeah.
we can't just lock people in the fucking
Yeah.
room.
In the goop
Dude,
room.
and that reminds me of the note on the boat when there's like the mutiny on the boat and
Yeah.
like someone's infected. Like I loved, and I actually was gonna talk about this because we're kind of getting into the gross segment of the conversation, but I loved reading all of that shit. Like that, obviously, it's like
Like about like
it's like
the monster
such
the
an
monster
important
lore was
part
always
of the
cool.
game. But like all these notes that are like, oh, like that's the tale of this village is like someone fucking got infected and like this
Yeah.
fucking happened and whatever. The note that stuck with me, I will never forget as long as I live what this note said. It's when you're in the apartments going down with Lev as Abby, and it's like right around when I think it's when you find it when you're looking for the gas mask for Lev. One of the notes says, don't go to the bottom floors. The nest is too big.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
And if you use the word nest, man,
Yeah, it's gross.
about
You're
Talking
anything,
about goop.
yeah.
the goop nest?
I
Yeah.
will not eat for weeks if you're going to tell me about the fucking
That's not true.
That's not true. I
Nest.
would like to eat soon.
You ate that.
I am
Yeah.
sickened.
I'll eat tomorrow.
The nest is, can you imagine being there and you find the fucking note? Then you have to go down because Lev's like, hey,
We gotta
bro,
go down to the nest.
Go down to the
And
nest.
the guy says the nest is too big.
So it's actually funny you mentioned that because Abby safely dismounts from the rope and Lev falls
Into the goop.
Into the goop. And I was
the
like,
goopy
oh,
soupy.
Evil,
you
man.
gross little
Actually,
boy.
there was actually a
Soupy.
weird, like, I'm not going to call it a glitch, but I dropped all the way down, and then my thumb kind of went up a little bit on that rope, and I was like, well, I'm just going to jump off. And I jumped off and died. I took lethal fall damage.
From like this far off the ground.
Literal, like, because I didn't go all the way to the bottom of the rope, but I was like a tick up or something.
Yeah,
And
that
I was like,
that definitely happened to me sometimes.
an inch, and I died.
But back to Bill's question.
Yeah.
Like who is the character you were super interested in? Bill's example was that he really he wished he knew more about Isaac, the wolf leader.
Yes.
He was voiced by Jeffrey Wright, who's a
He wanted to
fantastic
play
actor
as
in
Isaac.
Westworld. I wish I got to see more of him being a complete shithead.
Yeah.
And I also agree. For everything I've said about the scars, Isaac is also like he's so important. He's talked about all the time.
He's an enigma.
And then you just like you see him for a second.
He's torturing that guy.
They call
yeah.
they call Abby like Isaac's like scar killer
Yeah,
and
Right,
like
yeah.
kind of doesn't get talked about anymore. And I imagine in like the the perfect version of this game they do delve into all this, but I think Bill's right. Isaac was a character that I wanted to know more about, but wasn't really interested in. I think the person I was interested in most is the Scar leader, but out of the people you actually talked to, I was really interested in Yara's story because like you just don't know anything really other than that. I feel for her like so deeply because she, like what are you gonna do? Like your brother wasn't born the way that he wished he was, and now like of course you're gonna do everything you can to protect him.
That would have been a really cool. And when I read that question last night, I was trying to think about it and couldn't really think of like something that a character that I thought would give me like a meaningful sort of experience. But then having the conversation earlier in this episode when we were talking about like, what if you played as a Scar and learned about the Scars?
That would be
way?
a great
I
DLC
think
for the
that's-
game. Would be their story leading
Right,
up to
and
meeting Abby.
Yeah, I think that would be
Lev's-
my answer too, because that is, like you were saying, sort of a blind spot for the game.
Yeah.
And it'll just like, it would give it more meaning. It's part of a tribe that you don't know about, like all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Like,
Well, and I think that also like there's a lot of trauma and just like hellish experiences associated with Lev and his story.
Yeah.
And it's like it felt like, I know it was actually a crucial conversation, but it kind of felt like a conversation that could have been missed because it felt like what is it called in Mass Effect when you loyalty missions? Like,
Yeah.
it felt like loyalty missions in Mass Effect were like it really felt like I had a dialogue tree of like, what's the deal with Lev?
Yeah.
And then Yara is like, but I mean, literally, like, controller up into the right, A, what's the deal with Lev?
Yeah.
And then Yara's like, oh, yeah, well, he was going to get married to the Elder and he didn't want to, so he shaved his head. It really felt so much like a Mass Effect conversation to me where it was like, because it was kind of presented as like deep lore that kind of just like, kind of gets glossed over. And I think that just so, like, what was that like? Like, imagine a Naughty Dog shot scene of like Lev getting that information, having to go home, and then just like the shaving of his head and stuff like
that would be
it would be unreal.
intense.
Yeah,
right?
I think pretty much to answer Bill's question, I would have just said like Lev. I would have just like to know more about him and just like a Lev Genesis.
Yeah.
like,
yeah, I
story
would
or
love to
something
see
like that.
the story
Yeah.
that's the two of them
I
from
wonder-
like what happens to Lev to them escaping to them
and just
being
like their
hunted.
actual like entry into the Scars.
Yeah.
What that looks
that
like.
would make sense for DLC.
yeah.
a lot
Although
of sense.
they have
They've said
announced
that they're not
no
doing
DLC.
DLC.
Wow.
DLC.
Okay.
Yeah.
That the game is just the game.
And speaking of listener questions, Billy Bat says, do you feel like the Lev reveal was forced?
No,
No.
No,
no,
Like I
which I
said,
think we
yeah.
touched on earlier.
We touched on that.
Yeah.
Lev is a person
Yeah.
who exists.
Yeah,
That's like just like in real life.
like
Yeah,
the four of us, we just exist in the world.
I think that it was actually really so the only thing that I felt was forced about it, and this is being like super nitpicky, but think about like Nick's experience. He didn't like Abby, didn't want to like Abby. And Naughty Dog does so much to be like, hey, Abby's actually the good guy. She's cool with the trans kid. She's fine. She doesn't ask, she doesn't press. And that was a moment where I was like, because they have a little conversation where Lev's like, do you want to ask me anything? And Abby's
She's
like,
like,
do
"Nah."
you want me to ask you anything? And he's like, I don't know. And then that was kind of like this weird, granted, like it was kind of a setup for like the conversation with Yara later, but it did feel like, oh, you really want me to think she's like cool, that she's like,
Yeah,
it felt like, oh, we're going to challenge your opinion on, is she the military boss babe or,
Yeah.
Yeah,
or
like
is
how can you hate her?
right.
now?
Yeah. Kind of in a way that was my only thing about it that I felt was forced, but like, I don't give a shit. I thought it was really cool that Lev was transgender. I thought when you're running around the island and they're saying, Lily, you should have never left. And like, I thought that was, as soon as it happened, I was like, okay, everything makes sense now. Like that's fucking crazy. I thought it was a really cool part. And even though knowing now that it was maybe shoehorned is the wrong way, but that it wasn't in like the core narrative vision of the game, I think they made it work in a way that was really cool and made it feel
Like meaningful.
meaningful.
Yeah.
Not that every minority needs to have this like meaningful existence. They can just exist. But I thought it was really cool and handled really well. Granted, I'm not trans. I can't speak to how they would think, but
Right, yeah.
but yeah, I honestly didn't think it was forced at all.
So I had actually spoke with a trans friend about it, and they felt that it was pretty well done for the most part. Obviously, like I think, at least to them, they felt that maybe like just having to like purposefully dead name him for the sake of whatever like background noise that they needed or whatever was maybe a little forced, but in general, seemingly it was handled well enough.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like the tough. It's one of those things like, did the game need to do that?
Yeah.
No, but would the Scars do that? Yes.
yes, because
First,
they
you
don't
know,
believe in
For our viewers that don't know what dead naming is when you refer to a trans person as either their like given name or just not their name. So
right,
that's it.
right. Maybe the name they went by before,
Yeah. Or just
Yeah.
like their birth name or whatever.
right?
So-
Birth name, the name that was given to them.
We talk a lot about the order of the story and things like that, and the length you play as Abby. And I've seen a lot of complaints online about like, well, they should have told the story chronologically and not done, you know, the repeat.
Yeah.
Like, but do you think that would have, obviously we are, you know, we played through the game, so we experienced it. Do you think that would have mitigated the issues that people had?
Like if they went like day one.
Yeah.
I think
would've
the
hated
goal. I think the goal.
But that's
was
not the
that,
question.
I
do
think
you think it would have mitigated the public perception?
I guess I don't.
I think the
know.
goal of Naughty Dog was to make you connected to these characters, right? And I don't think it would have happened in the same way if it was broken up.
Yeah, if you didn't spend a considerate amount of time
So I
with
think
one or the
people
other.
would have just had different issues. I think they would have gotten to the end after doing day one, day two, day two, and
You would have never like really connected
they
or
would have been
felt
like, okay, like
the mission.
sure, like yeah, like two. Now it's Last of Us Part 2, and you play as two people, like equal amounts. Like it's just like that. It would have felt like more gimmicky. It wouldn't have been this. You get so much of Ellie at first, which is what you want as the player, and you don't really get Joel, which is what you want, but you do get Ellie, which is definitely connecting you to the first game.
Yeah.
And then they just like whiplash you out of it, and you have to deal with the part of the world that Ellie and Joel fucked up.
I'm of the mind that people that were gonna hate this game, or people that were gonna hate any game, period, you can't appease them. There's nothing you could have done.
Yeah, I agree.
To
As Naughty Dog, you just got to make the game that you want to make.
yeah, like,
because no matter how the story was told,
yeah.
Joel's gonna die, bro.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Also, you were gonna play
like
it.
even if the game was like you played as Ellie and Joel was your companion, people would have been mad that Ellie was the playable character and Joel was the companion.
Now here's a question, a personal question that I have. Do you guys remember when the game was announced, all of the like drama around it?
I actually don't. I don't
So
know if I was
when-
I
following
remember
it. I wasn't following it super heavily.
I remember people were like, "Is Joel fucking dead?"
So at Paris Games Week in 2018, I want to say, maybe 2019, the scene of Abby being strung up by the Seraphites was released, and Abby had already been teased. You already like vaguely knew she was a character in the story, but you know, just to refresh your memory, a woman strings her up, holds the knife to her, and then Yara comes in and gets her arms broken with a hammer. And there was a lot of conversation around that moment being like, did you need to show as much violence against women as you did in this particular cutscene, right? And it's, I think that takeaway from that is the other side of the coin of people seeing the Joel thing and then giving up and watching the ending on YouTube and seeing it's like, yeah, like the game isn't about violence against women, right? But that is the harsh reality of the world that they were in right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you see it in a vacuum, I think it was smart of Naughty Dog to kind of just ignore that and be like, yeah, I mean,
You
just
don't know
gotta-
the story we're telling.
You just got to play the game. And like,
Yeah.
you know, could they have told the story without that moment? No.
No,
Like-
no,
like, actually.
that moment is so important
Yeah.
to the story and what happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, people, when things like this happen, right? Like they show you just like literally like a one millionth of
Yeah.
the picture,
Yeah.
and you're
You don't
gonna be
have context
pissed
for it.
about this. Like,
Yeah.
just wait for the game. And if the whole game is like a bunch of guys like beating up women, then yeah, we can have
Yeah,
another
sure, yeah,
conversation.
exactly.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
but if you get to that part in the game and it's contextual and it makes sense and it's part of the story and you realize that you've already just played as Abby for like 8 hours and she's an ass beater,
Yeah.
like, just chill.
But honestly, the game's a lot of women beating up men.
It is. It's a lot of women kicking the shit out of guys.
What were
I'm sure
some
someone's upset about that.
No, of
Yeah.
course.
What were some small
me.
details that you guys noticed about the game? Like,
What do you mean?
I mean, just anything. Like, what was something that you watched happen or you saw and you're like, holy shit? Like, for me, there's two things that stick out really big. It's whenever Ellie would grab somebody and shove the knife in their throat and just like, don't. And
Yeah.
whenever she did that, the hair stood up on my arms. I was like,
Oh,
Yeah,
every kill in this game
it's
is
so
taxing
visceral.
on you. It's
but,
like
but the don't to me was just like,
Oh, yeah.
she's just like a fucking killer and
Yeah.
she's in charge. And she's like, don't. And she brings the body down.
Do
and
not
I was
make
like,
a noise.
yeah. And I was like, holy shit. The second one was, Actually, I think it was connected to the sniper scene with Tommy. When you're in the lodge, the level of detail in this game is fucking nuts. You look out the window of the lodge and it's like frosted over, and you see trees. And in the lodge, there's the card, and there's the Joel's reading the comic book that Ellie likes.
Yeah.
Like that to me was the first time, which like sounds kind of dumb, but because I viewed that thing as like relatively inconsequential, but they just went hard in the fucking paint of like, we're gonna, like, there was no, but then like that's what annoys me later is like you went so deep on that, and then you've got the same woman like twice in a row, 3 times, like, you know.
The things that really stood out to me were the facial animations in this game were so unbelievable. When you grab someone as Ellie or Abby and you rotate the camera,
Strange.
Which I did
And they're-
every time.
they're
I was always trying
straining
to
and they're making faces and
They're
like,
upset about it.
Yes, and
Big
they're
time.
wincing and they're
stoked.
like
struggling.
Yes,
like,
it's
like the weight.
so crazy how that did not even have to be in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
like
So are you looking for more of like that kind of detail thing? Because something
Yeah, I'll let
that
you
was
go.
always like a big payoff for me, and something that I like really sought out and that I thought was like just so important for like my own immersion, were the notes that people who had died had written to each other, and uncovering these like little stories that are not about main characters that just mean so much. And one that I can remember right now is when you're on your way to the hospital as Ellie, you see a note of a woman that like wrote about her husband was going to go find supplies, and she was like, I hope he's got it. If and it's 2 of my thinking, it's even like, if you come back and find me, like, use the stuff for yourself, or it's something like along the lines of like, these are my final moments. And I'm like, man, this is just a corpse. Like, how are you making me care so much about this corpse, Naughty Dog? And you go through like a town or two, like a couple blocks, and you get to another place, and he's behind broken glass and a locked door and whatever. And you pick up the note, and it's like, I left my wife to come find supplies. And I'm like, holy shit, now I got to deal with it again. Like,
Yes.
I care so much about
and
this
the guy,
couple.
he's got a bag full of med
Yes.
supplies. So he got the
And
med
it's-
supplies,
dude, and
he
it's
just
like-
couldn't make it back.
And it's like you have now made me care about people who I
Don't even know their names.
I
don't even.
I don't know when they lived. Like, they lived, who knows when, like years before all this. Like, they were experiencing shit that I've seen happen to people that I care about. So I feel I can like apply that to their experience and like fill in the blanks there. But it's like and it's written notes. Like, you think about how important voice acting is in performance, and like how much that means. These are just written fucking notes that I'm like connected to.
Oh yeah, the
And,
storytelling's awesome.
There's a point, I was in your room for it, I was in Sean's room for it, and he had walked by a safe, and I was like, did you happen to see a safe back there? And he was like, oh no, not yet. And then I remembered after I said that I actually saw the safe before I saw the note that had the code for the safe. But that note that you find later is like, hey, our stuff, our goods, like our lifeline is still in safe at the store. And it's like, these people are just surviving, and this person owned a store, and there's a safe in there that with stuff. And like, of course, that's like just the video game. I'm gonna get the things that I need to like upgrade my shit and whatever. But it really, like, I was seeking out all of those papers and stuff, and caring so much in like the detail about like, so and so went to this place, I hope they made it. And then you find them, and it's like, well, they did make it there.
They made it there
didn't
and
make it
got the
back.
thing that they went
And
to go get.
the town were completely in a vacuum. This story happens, like, one guy is like kind of rising up in the town, like kind of directing, but then he's going a little like, maybe he's gonna sign with the wolves. It's like when you're playing as Ellie, you're about to get to the dogs. There's like 4 buildings, but you find like 8 notes about
like
this,
talking about
and
the
it's this
same-
trajectory, this like character development of a guy that who
You're
knows
never
who
gonna
he- like,
fucking meet.
yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
probably.
like, I'm like, okay, I'll read everything. Sorry, I keep slapping the mic. I'll read everything about these people that lived in this town that aren't the main character, but they put so much detail into shit that wasn't the main character.
What about you, Dev?
So I'm gonna touch on like a couple like more like pop culture things that I recognize, and then I'll do like a little bit of a technical deep dive of shit that I really liked. But when It Was a Good Day started playing, like that was the coolest shit I've ever heard in my entire life, and it like brought such a big smile to my face, and I like just had to sit there and like listen to the whole song, and it was like, wow, this is so fucking cool. This is like showing up in this game. And then we have the pop culture reference. We've got if you went into the bank robbery in the Seattle hub, there was Point Break references. Joel and Ellie were talking about Jurassic Park in two different places. I think they actually talked. He was talking about one, and then he was talking about the sequel, and in like a different scene. And then at some point they were talking about, they like referenced Pokemon cards. And I thought that shit was like so dope.
And Comic-Con.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
To have a whole conversation about and she's like, what?
Yeah.
And going back again about like elements in the environment, I would see like PVMs and CRTs, and I would look behind them, and they would have all of the correct they had like all of the correct inputs and shit. I'm like,
Wow.
hell yeah, that's like
Crazy.
That's my shit. But yeah,
It's like crazy levels of detail.
wild level detail. And then like, you know, you got like small wildlife running around. You got like cats and rats or whatever, just like running around. You know, again, to your point, the texture, like the character detail, just like the skin texture, the subsurface scattering, which is what that helps with like realistic lighting on skin. If you look at like ears or fingernails, when light comes through that,
it's like transparent,
that's subsurface scattering. So stuff like that. And even like the dance hall scene when they kissed, that was like the most realistic kissing I've ever seen in a game.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was like crazy realistic. And how they mix their real-time cutscenes with the action and just like bring you right into it.
Yeah.
And it's not anything new, but it is a masterclass in how to do that.
Yeah.
So that was just like a really cool thing. And then obviously like we can talk all day about like clothing materials. Like if you look in the character viewer and how like the jeans actually like look like real jeans with the lines and everything. Wet clothing. And when the clothing got wet, I like actually like reminded me of the feeling of like when you have wet clothes and it's just like weighing you down. And then another thing, we were actually talking about this. We were talking about this a little while ago, but it was just about the Abby's vertigo and how you would get to the edge of somewhere tall and she would start shuddering and shaking.
Yeah.
And then if you were to look down, the camera
The craziest.
would do the dolly zoom thing and just like really show you, okay, she's like really, really afraid of heights. And they did touch on that. And where he's like, oh, I didn't know you were afraid of anything. We're like, Owen was like talking shit to you. So just like those little touches there, like Ellie when she would like swipe her hair, like bite her nails when you were kind of just like not really doing anything. So just like all of that stuff just really, really brought me in.
There's a lot of stuff the game does that you just never even notice. To make you feel like it's a real experience.
Yeah, and another probably like in terms of like technique and technical things. So the animation is done with something called motion matching, and what that does is a ton of animation data is collected, and someone had built a system around that in which it combines the realism of those animations, but also with the responsiveness. So what you can do, like if you're in a battle and you need to take a tight turn, if you notice that doesn't look very janky, is because of that system. And they were able to mesh the two. So it's like, okay, she's moving in a realistic way, but this doesn't prevent me from making these quick moves that I need to because it is still a video game.
Wow.
On the subject of video game stuff,
I don't know.
the beginning of the game had so much Naughty Dog DNA in it.
Yeah.
But then it goes away. Like I remember specifically in the like atrium part of the game, there's a hallway that like they basically took level design from Uncharted 4 and popped it in. It's like cabinets knocked over and like I know I've got to like duck and cover. And I was like, I saw it and I was like, oh, this is an Uncharted game. Like a wolf is gonna come shoot at me. And then there's a couple puzzles where I was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna like jump up on the thing. The rope shit actually felt very forced to me. It was like, we get it, you make Uncharted.
Yes,
Yeah,
I had the same when you're playing as Ellie and you first get to Seattle and you have to get over the big wall.
Yeah.
And you do a full-on Uncharted, climb up the side of the thing, jump on the roof, jump on the thing, swing on and I got to the top and I went, guys, I said it out loud. I get it. You guys just came off Uncharted and Lost Legacy.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
This is a different game.
But you see it go away.
Yes.
Like
The most Uncharted thing to me, apart from that stuff, was when you're with Lev going up to climb up the building and you're like fucking climbing all on the skyscrapers, like
and like the crane and whatnot.
And like they put a story piece of lore in there where Lev is like, yeah, how do you think we always get by you guys? Like, we're above you. You guys know
Wolves never look up.
Right, yeah.
Which was sick.
Right. Wolves never look up. And that's when Abby is like, oh, like this clicks now. Like you just revealed your whole fucking plan.
Yeah.
But when I was doing that, I was like, dude, I fucking played Uncharted.
Already
Like,
played this game.
I've done this big set piece, dramatic climbing thing.
Yeah.
And it honestly, that part felt a little like out of reality to me. So I was like, are we really gonna climb like a whole skyscraper?
I think I got
here?
I was so bought into the Abby shit that I didn't even notice that.
Oh.
The thing that fucked me up more was every mudslide. Every mudslide was like, once again, just so you know, this is a Naughty Dog game. I don't know if you guys forgot. I will say there's actually a really sick thing. I wrote it down in my notes and I can't remember exactly. But actually, I know. Every time there was a chase sequence, it was actually the boulder scene from Crash Bandicoot, but in reverse. Like every Naughty Dog game has this, you know.
They do it the other way, yeah.
First back to Crash Bandicoot.
I mean, basically, like when I was chasing Nora through the hospital and I had to like take turns, it would remind me of when I would have to make a jump and hope that there was a platform there.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, that is actually really cool. But the mudslides, I was like, okay, guys, got it.
I think I got lucky because I haven't played Uncharted since number 2. So I wasn't.
You haven't played 4?
Nope, I wasn't constantly reminded of all this shit.
Oh my god,
I'm not
dude.
gonna play it.
Why?
I mean, if I somehow acquire it and plus have time, I might do it.
Awesome.
But I'm not.
I'm only halfway
It's
through.
awesome.
But still.
Awesome game.
So I have a question. Do you guys have a favorite part of the game?
Damn. I mean, that skyscraper part was just dope because of like the visuals of everything and just like you knew that Abby was scared shitless.
Mine's probably the take on me scene because it's just like this is something like, do I appreciate the game? Yes. Do I respect the game? Yes. Do I think it's a worthwhile experience? Yes. Do I like the game? Did I like having to deal with?
Did you like playing the game?
Yeah. Did I like having to deal with all that shit like the whole fucking time and like I'm scared and I'm sad and like it's just rough. Like the parts that I enjoyed the most were the take on me part and the museum with Joel.
Yeah.
The museum with Joel like was actually that might be over the take on me part. I think that just like the conversations and like the feeling of it and being able to just like chill in this world and like look at the dinosaurs and the fucking spaceship. Like it was just pleasant for a moment, even though I was depressed that Joel was dead.
Being able to spend time away from the game, I think actually the final cutscene with Joel is my favorite part of the game. Just because it's like, because it just sucks so much, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
It sucks so much after everything you've been through. And like
he's still dead.
He's still
fucking
dead,
dead.
and your last interaction with him was not great, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
I think my favorite part of the game is the take on me thing. I think that is just like encompasses why those games are so special. But I think the beginning of the game is like such a masterclass in storytelling, in game design, in like designing a world and a story. Because the game, if you remember, opens with Joel basically telling Tommy what happened at the end, right? Which is a great way to people that didn't play the first one and are playing the second one. I don't know why you would do that, but people do shit like that, and it's fucking weird. So, like, you get that for those people, right? But it is done so well that you do not feel like you are being spoon-fed something you already know. You're introduced to the guitar, which is, like, super symbolic and important to the story. And then the game makes you play as Joel.
Yeah.
And
I thought about this a lot.
And you are so comfortable being Joel that it lures you into this false sense of security. Because the last time you played as Joel, you were the fucking Terminator. And you kicked everyone's fucking ass and you got out of there and you saved Ellie and now you're Joel again and everything is right. And we're riding the horse into this town where we're safe.
Yeah.
And you are Joel and everything is good. And then it just spirals out of control from there. From the moment that you get into the town and you start dealing with the repercussions of the night before, it just spirals all the way to the point where then Joel dies, and then the game is off to the races.
Then the game starts.
Then the game starts. Like, I was playing it, and I was like, this is so good. Like, it is so good. This feels familiar. It feels like home when you're Joel riding it, and you're like, yes, I know this game. I know this guy. And then all of a sudden, it's all taken away.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so good.
If I could maybe change my favorite part, I actually think I felt this weird like pride almost, or I was like proud of Joel the last time that Ellie accosts him and is like, you need to tell me the truth right now. Like, I'll come back if you tell me the truth, but like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
And when I thought he was gonna lie again.
Yeah.
And I was like, not again.
Don't
dude.
lie again,
Like,
Joel.
And when he did it, I was like, whoa, that's like, because he's taking a risk. Like, this girl's like fucking mental. Like, she might just run off again.
Or kill him.
Yeah.
Like,
and that scene was like, oh my God. It was like he had finally decided he was gonna be
Like the good guy.
right, exactly. And I think
rugged.
that's my favorite moment in a lot of games.
The redemption arc.
Yeah, or not even like redemption, but like even just like trying. Like my favorite games are like, you know, Red Dead 2, Yakuza. You play as like a bad guy who eventually is like, oh, I'm the bad guy. Like,
Am
I
I
gotta
the
fix
bad?
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that conversation was like, fuck.
Yeah, no, the game is awesome. It's so good.
What about you, Dev?
I think, other than like set piece wise, easily the skyscraper scene. Like, I don't think, I mean, I think the island stuff was cool while like the island was burning down, but I think set piece wise, I just really liked making my way up to the crane and trying to get across that. And then obviously when she finally, because I'm scared of heights.
I was gonna say,
Yeah, right.
And then when you fall down and shit, so that's really cool. But
well, and I thought of you in that part because she falls off of heights into a pool, and I was
Yeah,
like,
it's
like
oh,
Dev's in hell.
I would be double dead.
Out of the
Just put some
frying-
spiders
out of
in
the
there
frying
and
pan.
it's
Yeah.
game over, dude. But I think my absolute like definitive was just when it ended, because that's what actually made me sit with like what had happened with like, because like everything that happened before that, but like once she like had like her family involved, once she like lost her family, like
Yeah.
then that's like the part that like really sat with me. I'm like,
The
oh,
stakes
this is,
are
like,
different.
This is like heavy.
it's
Yeah.
so funny. I think everybody unanimously is like, you're of two minds of it, right? Because you're like, I want to keep playing the game, and I know she's gonna leave, but like, please don't. Like, I want what's best for you.
Yeah.
Don't go on this fucking journey.
There's like she plays the guitar, she puts it down, there's no more music, she walks off, and that's the credits. That's my favorite part of the whole entire game.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Is there any I guess I was gonna bring up like, I guess we kind of already brought up like things that we like really didn't like. I guess maybe things that you maybe like felt were weird, whether they are about like the mechanics or something technical about it.
I'll tell you, I experienced a lot of bugs in my game. I know not many other people did, but there was couldn't break the windows, Abby. I don't know what that means. But there's one room in Seattle when you're playing as Ellie. There's a dumpster near the building, and if you scan, there's like 10 infected in this building.
Oh, yep.
And I mounted the fence and landed on the dumpster, clipped through the environment, and died. And I was like, what the fuck? There was another one where the flashback with Joel going to the museum, you're walking along the river, and Joel walked up a tree and back down. And I was like, I would normally love it, but I was like, I know you want me to love this scene right now, but he just did this.
He did all of that.
He's a god.
I had a glitchy thing, and then I have a thing that was something that I didn't like about something that they actually did intentionally that I didn't like. But the glitchy thing is when you are Abby getting hunted by Ellie in the theater, in the stage room. In one of the parts where you are like grappling with her and you're kind of like wrestling, the place where it like went into like more of a like kind of pulls out and does a cinematic for a moment before you like break free and like go your separate ways before you hit her the last time. We were like in like a doorway or next to a thing and like a big piece of the set, and they both just started like glitching. It was like shaking. Like while they were grappling, I was like, okay, this is a really important part of the game.
Yeah.
I'm gonna restart from my last checkpoint because I shouldn't be experiencing like this struggle.
I should have done that in the museum.
Now, can I briefly say that when, in the same way that I tried to not kill the doctor in Last of Us Part 1 as Joel, when I pulled up with with Abby to the theater and we're gonna fucking skirmish in there, I let Ellie kill me a few times. Dude, because I was like, Ellie deserves this right now, and that's what I wanted 10 hours ago.
Dude, there are cuts on YouTube of like how the Last of Us Part 2 or like Last of Us Part 2 ending, Ellie kills Abby. And it's like it's literally the whole game, and then it ends there.
Wow.
And
so
I'm like,
I let that rock a little bit. I was like, you come and kill me because that's what I want for you when I was playing as you. But the thing that I was upset about, and it's when you're in Seattle, thing I didn't like. There are parts of Seattle when you're in like the big open world zone and then in the Hillcrest that I couldn't get back to parts that I had done, and I didn't realize I was triggering like the
at like a point of no return.
Point of no return, exactly. So I don't know if I missed anything in Seattle. I feel like I did a lot, and I did every question mark that showed up on my map, but I don't know if I missed a hint that would have given me a question mark. But like I did Barco's, I did the music scene, I did the bank robbery, I did like all that, and I don't know if I missed anything, which is a bummer because if I did, I'm upset that I don't know and that I missed it. And then when you're in the Hillcrest, you know, when you go in the room and you find the 2 dead bodies that Tommy has killed, before you go in that room, there's a staircase that goes up. And I was like, okay, there's a staircase, so let me just clear this floor, and then I'll move my way up to the next floor. And I go in the room.
Does the cutscene.
Immediately it's a cutscene, and I'm like, the whole cutscene, I'm like, let me out of the room after.
Yeah.
Just let me out of the room after. Like, that's all I need. I go, you can't.
It's locked,
you go through the next one, and it's all fucking boarded off in the hallway. And I was like, Sean,
You're talking
when
about.
you get to the Hillcrest, let me know, because I'm going in your room, and we're going up the stairs that I missed.
I gotta see what's up there.
There was nothing up there, but
what if there was?
What if there was? And so the thing that I'm upset about is there were points that I didn't realize they were going to be a point of no return for me because the exploration was so important to the way that I wanted to play the game.
to your point about that, I honestly didn't like when it was like so obvious that like I didn't mind when I was running away from somebody and I boarded a door up. That made sense to me. But when it was like I went through something and then all of a sudden a bookshelf fell over, I was like, come on.
I wasn't
bitch.
done in there yet. Yeah.
I only had like one like glitchy thing really, and it was like totally one of those things that could not have been QA'd out where I was falling off a ledge while switching an item and like switching something in my inventory, like
Limit testing.
Yes, you would like when it happened, I was like, I'm not upset that didn't work out.
Yeah.
Like,
That
and
was-
I like landed, and the like pipe that I had in my backpack, I pulled it out, and she's standing like she's holding something, nothing in her hands.
Nice.
And then like 2 like infected like run up on me, and I hit them with nothing.
Nice.
Kill them with nothing,
That's
and then
cool.
she puts it away, and
Yeah.
when she puts it away, it like blinked onto
Back
the
into
backpack.
place. Wow.
That was really it.
I have a couple of the only glitch that I ran into was that I think it happened like twice, is that for whatever reason I would enter the menu to say like craft something, and you would enter the menu and nothing is like selectable or clickable or anything. So that happened to me twice, so I had to reload. But that was the only bug I ran into. But the other stuff was like more nitpicky stuff. Film grain, I don't care for it. I got used to it, but I don't care for it. And I wish it wasn't there, but you know, wasn't my vision. So, you know, but I got over it. But like at the beginning of the game, it was definitely like,
You're like, what the fuck?
And I was like, went through all the options in the menu to try and turn it off. There was some, this is again, nitpicky technical shit in the climbing part that I really like, and in Santa Barbara, there was some slowdown getting into like the low 20s in the frame rate, which was like obviously like a bit jarring and like, you know, but that surprisingly like really the only time that happened in the game, which was like really, which is very good, like a testament of like how well they had made sure that it like hit that 30 frame per second mark the whole entire time. And especially because this is actually the largest, it's the largest Naughty Dog game to date in terms of like environment. So kudos to them on that. And then so on base PS4 it runs at 1080p. On PS4 Pro it runs at 1440p. However, the PS4 does not output 1440p. So if you have a 1440p monitor, it will play on 1080p. It won't play on 4K. So, but if you have a 4K monitor, what it'll do is it does do a good job of taking that 1440p and making it look good on a 4K display. I'm not going to go into things. It's called checkerboarding. It's really nice. They use it in God of War as well. But yeah, I don't know why PS4, like, why are you going to put the game at 1440p? Because PlayStation's not going to output that. Stop it.
I had a bug that actually made me think of you. When you're playing as Abby in the Home Depot, you have to make this big jump from, they make a big spectacle of like, oh, there's light up there. You get up there. Abby's like, I'll make the jump. You jump and you jump onto a rack that falls over. Mm-hmm. It didn't fall over for me the first time. I landed on it and I was like, okay, there's the light thing. I'll jump up. And I went to jump up on like the tote and I slid off and I was stuck in the second area of the Home Depot. There was stuff I could pick up, and I was like, okay, so I'm definitely supposed to be over here. There's like health packs, whatever. There's a door, and the way the door looked, it was like gray outside with like a little black. It honestly looked like there was a tall gray wall. And part of me was like, is that the skybox? That's really weird if that's the skybox, but I don't know. Maybe I don't know what happened. And I was over there for 10 minutes, and I couldn't get back, and I was like, okay, I'll restart. Then I restart, I do the jump, and as soon as it happened, the thing fell. I paused it, and I was like, Nick, did you have anything weird happen? Because then you fall. By the way, on that other half of the wall, the infected are not spawned in yet. They don't spawn in until
they load in when you're falling.
Yeah. Okay.
So like, because I was looking around trying to be like, is there a dead character model around here? Like, and then when you actually go through and you see that you're actually walking into like a greenhouse outside the Home Depot, I was like, oh, that was definitely the skybox. Right. That was really weird. One thing I want to bring up that we didn't get to touch on earlier is how everything in the game, and I think that Naughty Dog did this so incredibly deliberately, everything in the game has a parallel where Joel and Ellie is Abby and Lev. Mm-hmm. And the wolves, they say to each other, may your survival be long and your death be swift.
Yeah.
And the scars have like I forget their same greeting, but it was so dark to me, and I didn't think about it until this last scene. The last thing Nora and Abby say to each other is, may your survival be long and your death be swift. And we know that Nora's death was not swift at all. And I that like haunted me. I was like, whoa, they did a lot of work to make this mean something to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was not swift.
Yeah, but, it was an incredible game. I've thought a lot about if I would want to do New Game Plus.
Not for me.
I started it on Survivor, and it's definitely cool. It's been like fun to like try and like work my way through this, like, because this is pretty difficult. But it's good because I'm playing it in such a different style, and a more like slow and deliberate style as opposed to trying to melee everyone. So it's been cool in that, but I'm not gonna finish it.
It was nice to try.
When I got to the end and it was like, hey man, you can like go do everything with like your shit again. No,
that's no interest.
It's all good, bro. Like it's
a game like that for me is like, I experienced it. I'm done.
Like I got out of it.
I just and I was in it for the story. Like I don't really feel the need to like accomplish it on the hardest thing or like challenge myself in any of these like personal ways or whatever. Like I really was just. I was invested in the story that they were trying to tell, and I got to experience that, and that's good enough for me. And honestly, the story is too fucking heavy for me to deal with again.
I think a good thing to end on is the last question from Brian Makes Games in our Discord. You guys can join him if you subscribe to us on Twitch and hopefully OnlyFans. Do you think it's valid for a game to challenge the player in ways that they may not enjoy? And in addition to that, does a game have to be fun for you to enjoy it? Which is kind of what Nick touched on earlier.
Mm-hmm. I think it's totally valid, and that you like that was what I was saying. Like this isn't a game that I liked doing all the shit that I had to do, but it is such an important experience when you're invested in these things. And I think that so there's actually a scene in the game when you are as Ellie in the boat. You take the little motorboat, and you like go through and you're like trying to get everywhere, and the boat crashes at one point. I think you're on the way to the aquarium. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
The boat crashes and you have to swim, and the waves are fucking nuts.
Yep.
And I'm in there, and here's the thing: I'm not like big on being out deep in the ocean. Like I think the ocean's scary and shit, and I'm not worried that they're gonna give me like a shark jump scare, honestly. But like.
I would not have been surprised at
If
that
there was
point
one.
in the
Yeah.
game.
No,
like,
sure.
Literally jumped the shark.
Ocean, ocean shit is like, it just feels so overwhelming to me. Like whenever there's like a movie where someone's drowning or something, I'm like, this is like a lot for me to
feel
do.
that.
And so the boat crashes, and Ellie is swimming, trying her best to like get to the next thing that she has to get to, and I'm doing it, and I'm like struggling to like just cope with this. And the game really in that moment shows you that it's about the determination of these characters. And I think that that is worth more than giving me something that I'm going to enjoy the whole time, that I think is like fun. Like maybe I think sniping is like the coolest thing in a video game. So if I get to snipe in this game, I'm going to think that's fun. But the game needing to show you that it's about determination through these incredibly tough tasks that the character has to deal with and you through them have to deal with is like necessary for certain points and feelings to come across. Like Ellie was determined to fucking get through a crazy, not only is the world crazy, but this crazy storm in the middle of the ocean, the boat crash, like everything went wrong in that moment. But she needed to move forward. And so
not me. I would have sank to the bottom.
I think this game is a perfect example of a game that does not need to be fun to enjoy it, and for it to be challenging in ways that I don't want to deal with. Like I was saying earlier, every kill that you perform fucking takes a toll. Like it really does. Even though you're just killing these infected, like they were people, and the don't, and like the animation and the facial expressions, like everything about it was like heavy. I didn't enjoy doing that. Just like Ellie doesn't enjoy doing it. You know what I mean? So I think it is perfectly valid for a game to have to incorporate elements like that.
Yeah, I don't think a game has to. I think I've played plenty of games that weren't like fun in like the traditional sense, that were still like amazing games. But I think that this is the one that was the least fun.
Yeah.
Like I would not say that playing
Absolutely.
this game is fun.
No.
There were some parts that were fun, but a lot of it was like really stressful and like I felt uneasy the whole time. But the payoff is incredible.
Yes.
If you stick through it.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I love that I played the game. I love that I pushed through. Like, not pushed through it, but I love, because I didn't have to push through it, which is like, at the beginning I said, like, I'm not sure if I liked it or not. Like, I love the game.
Yeah.
Did I like playing the game? Not particularly. But while playing it, I wanted nothing more than to get through it and see what happens.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, playing the game was not fun for me, but I loved the game. I think the game is amazing, and I'm glad I played it.
Yeah.
I actually had a blast. I had a blast with this game. I do think it's valid for a game to challenge people for things like that they may not enjoy, because especially if we're talking about a game that mixes so many elements, we have our adventure, you have our shooter, you have some stealth. Like, not everyone's going to like all of those things, but if they can find something within that they do like, then they may have to overlook some of those other things. Like now, if it was a shooting game and like people didn't like shooters, like then they just wouldn't play it. But if you're gonna mix things, then it is valid to have like, it's valid to have it, because like some people aren't gonna find all of the elements fun. And now, if I feel a game is fun, if I'm having fun with it, and it's mixed with like a really good story, then I will overlook shortcomings or things that I don't like and just be like, whatever, I'm having fun with it. I'm enjoying it, even though there's some slowdown here, some stupid glitch or something like that. You know, and a lot of times, like if it's not like completely game breaking and annoying, and obviously only has like happens once, you know, I'll overlook those kind of things. But generally, like, I'm having fun, the adrenaline's flowing, the dopamine's hitting my brain. I'm loving it, because being on the edge of my seat and like thriller and suspense, like that's my shit. That's my bread and butter right there. And that's my favorite type of game. That's my favorite type of movie. And that's why I think I really, really enjoyed this game, because it did have me on the edge of my seat. And I was constantly like, okay, what's going to happen next? Like, who's the next dude that's going to come out, and like, is someone that I love going to die? And just all kinds of everything. Just like my brain is constantly zooming around. That's why I think I like this game so much.
Awesome.
Seems like a good note to close out on.
Yeah.
All right.
Who wants to take us out?
Not me.
All right. Well, I'll do it. Thank you guys so much for the first episode of Screen Peek. Hope you guys liked it. Again, this is going to be a monthly video game book club, we're calling it, but Screen Peek. If you want to join us, make sure to go either subscribe on Twitch, or you can subscribe hopefully on OnlyFans, we think.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
TBD.
Yeah. And I guess normally what we would do is like community vote on what the next game is or offer what the next game is. But since it is the second one and everything is not up and running yet, next month's game is Ghost of Tsushima. So if you would like to join in on the conversation, at the end of next month, we will do this again. Play the game, get your questions into us over on the Discord. And thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll see you guys next month for Ghost of Tsushima.
Peace.